Hello everybody, welcome to the Dreading Hour. Today we are here with two guests. The first is the greatest writer on earth, just above my head. And the second is She's Always Nervous, a new guest to the podcast, so say hello.
Hello, it's me, Nervous.
And so today, what we're doing is we're going to go through this genius author, his catalog of absolute bangers, and we're going to give our take on how things are written and which way we would like the story to go. And I also have Gibby and Unwithered Truth, but you're used to them by now, so they're not as cool.
Yeah, they're sick of hearing us yap.
I'm just here out of obligation. 5 more visits, he's gonna up my pay.
One
Get him the punch card.
Yeah, he's gonna double it, he says.
Exponentially. It'll go exponential growth.
Yeah,
It's a great contract, actually. I would be on board for that. Exponentially getting more.
unfortunately, I didn't read the fine print to find out that, you know, anything times 0 is still 0. It's fine. It's fine. We're all good.
Okay, once you get that first cent, once you get that first cent, it'll all be up from there. Okay, so basically, Scott Cawthon, he didn't start with Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, he made a lot of games before that, and even before those games, he'd make like Christian animations for like little kids in like Catholic school or something. And I have to look at all these now because I have a sub goal to do a huge analysis of all Scott Cawthon's writing tropes that he repeats.
Nice.
And so I was watching like his Christmas special the other day. And the humor is funny. It's exactly the same. His humor has not changed at all.
I've seen little clips of those animated shorts, and even stuff from the other games, like what was it, The Desolate Hope? Is that the one, the bigger one?
Yes.
For FNAF?
Yeah, I haven't played that one.
And yeah, the comedy is very particular, and I love his like slightly dark humor that just comes through a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find anything in analyzing those? I know obviously you're still in progress of it. By looking at his older work, did you see anything that could potentially help us understand his like thought process with FNAF?
Hilariously, in some of those old animations, the family dynamics and where the family lives are almost identical to the Aftons. It is very odd.
No way.
It is very strange.
And when you say the family dynamics, the dad is like an evil scientist and like has like an underground bunker.
Kills people.
Yeah, he's a murderer. Classic Christian. Christian
I just mean,
programming.
The father is usually particularly distant towards the oldest son in particular. And then the older brother is always very protective of the younger sister, if ever the two appear.
Oh,
and
interesting.
And I was watching it the other day, and I could not fucking believe my eyes. They do a pan in like this 2003 animation. They do a big pan out, and it's just a lone house on top of a hill. I was like, no way.
Midnight
Motorist loves one house.
Midnight Motorist is secretly solving his old Christian animations and has nothing to do with it.
Oh my god! He abandoned the Christian family, and they all turned to alcohol.
Yeah. Oh my god! I'd love if you're just like watching one of these, and then randomly Juniors is just in the middle of it. And you're like, wait.
It's the Scott cinematic universe. He meant for us to go back and find all this stuff.
I'm gonna do like a bit.
You saying that like his other works are very similar in like the setting and the family dynamics reminds me of like just one more reason that Scott Cawthon leans into like Stephen King's like storytelling style, where he's like this huge interconnected universe between all these different things.
I thought you were gonna say like he's just a fucking lunatic, because Stephen King is also
that
The Scott Cawthon Dark Tower is what we're thinking.
Yes, genuinely though, like it's like Agony is his Dark Tower.
Yeah, so in my joke video, or like not my joke video, in the video I'm gonna do a joke where I'm like the grandpa from this 2000 Dick's Christmas special is William Afton.
It'd be such a good like April Fool's like video to be like, actually, his old Christmas special is the Aftons.
And the one
Does
more
this
thing.
solve the lore?
One more thing. The set design too is literally just FNAF like sister location of FNAF 4. Like the wallpaper, there's a sun clock. I'm sure you've seen that image where there's like a sun clock on the wall. The lamps are exactly the same looking.
That's how you copy pasted all the assets because it was like,
I think he might have done that,
like,
but just changed the hue and saturation.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's really interesting. Wow, yeah, just completely importing something from a previous project. It also, anytime I see those animations and I see how everything else in the world looks exactly like FNAF, but the people are like these like claymation, really simple, But it makes me realize that like if we ever in the original series had seen a real person, like if Ralph was ever on screen, he would have looked like that, and it would have been like the intended style, because I always thought FNAF was like not like photo real necessarily, but it was supposed to be a realistic depiction. But I'm now considering that FNAF is actually a really cartoonish depiction of the real world, and that like the people look like they do in those cartoons.
You got the Michael Afton, Rick Astley silhouette, so that was realistic enough.
Oh, that's true. Actually, that's a good point. Checkmate.
Everybody in the FNAF universe is Rick Astley.
Right. Well, now we're moving on to what people actually care about. FNAF 1. Unwithered, go!
Oh, God. Okay. So I obviously spent a lot of time looking at FNAF 1 while writing my most recent video, which is like me rebooting the first game. Bless you.
Peak.
And
I tried to mute my microphone. How did you hear that?
I don't know.
You weren't fast enough.
Just that good. But yeah, FNAF 1 is really interesting because I think it actually is a fully contained story in and of itself. There's not really that many threads that are left, to the winds. I think that first game is really the story of some guy comes to work at the pizzeria and there are murders going on beforehand and the killer got caught, and that's all the newspapers were trying to say. Like, there was some kids, they died, they got put in the suits, they're ghosts now haunting the building, and specifically those robots. But I think the killer was originally caught in those newspapers. I don't think that it was like he was ever like, oh, maybe the killer got away. And I think the convicted charge thing is just poorly worded, but also like fully intended to be that he was convicted. Like I think sometimes we don't give Scott enough credit. We kind of go, oh, well, he just mustn't understand all the words. And I think it's just maybe the placement of them is not the clearest. But I think that first game story in terms of like what's there, and what was intended to be there is very straightforward. Ghost kids, they haunt the building. That's it.
Nice. Okay.
I figured out the issue. I was using the wrong microphone. But
yeah, I was gonna say you've been sounding like you were in like a public bathroom for the last 8 minutes.
I wish someone would just tell me.
I thought it was just like you had a different mic for your videos.
Retention to save.
Tell her that she sounds terrible. That would be rude.
She's always on the wrong mic. That's her name.
It's just Discord. It just likes to change what my output is. But yeah, I mean, FNAF 1 is so hard to even like look at now. Like back then, I feel like it was easier to kind of have a clear view of what I would have thought of Scott's storytelling at that time. But there's so much built upon that it's hard to have like just an opinion on FNAF 1 because it's such a different thing than it was when it was made.
Agreed.
See, Scott Cawthon
that's
is a lot like Steve from Minecraft in that he lays the foundation. And right now his little sticks and little planks of wood. But he's going to use this foundation to build the ultimate pile of shit.
Well, to give Steve some credit, Scott wasn't even trying to build something.
Right. He was like,
Steve at least
this
had
is my
something.
last ditch effort
Yeah.
I
That's
just
true.
want
Okay,
someone
okay,
to like a
okay.
game I made.
Any
I'll
lore
correct
stuff.
it. I'll correct what I said. He's on a multiplayer server and he walks around and he just sees that the community has put some fucking cobblestone on the ground. And so then he takes their cobblestone and he steals it and he makes something out of it. There you go. All right, continue, Gibby.
Yeah, my thing, whenever I'm thinking about anything lore-wise in FNAF 1, like, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that what was in the newspapers was just supposed to be like, there were murders here, which is why the animatronics are haunted? Question mark, right? Like, that's just like, oh, maybe you pick that up, maybe you don't. I think, as someone who's done, like, kind of projects like, you know, low expectations, just a little indie thing, I think that something like Golden Freddy, he's probably like, no one's going to play this game. Maybe it's going to do like 100 sales. Maybe one of those 100 people is going to be playing, and then a Golden Freddy is going to appear in the office, and they're going to be like, what was that? And then they'll post something online, and no one else will have ever seen it. Right? Like, I don't think he had lore for Golden Freddy. I don't think it was the original Freddy. I don't think that it was like, oh, the old animatronic and the whatever.
Yeah.
Well, he added that later.
Oh, that wasn't on release?
That was
in the source code?
that was because that was like one of those original FNAF 1 like rumors that if you put in 1987 something would happen.
He updated it.
He added that later because that's what people were saying.
That's cool.
Which I think is like also indicative of the way Scott built the original, like the early games. I think it was very much informed by what people were saying, what people were talking about, and I don't know necessarily around the time of FNAF 1 if there was much discussion on the charge versus convicted wording. I don't know if that was something that was really brought up, but I could absolutely seeing it as a thing where someone brings up the fact that those two words don't mean the same thing, and whether or not Scott intended it to, you know, have any sort of significance that the two words were used, that could have been the inspiration to then have it that, you know, obviously William is out and about in the second game. You know, he could have used that as like a seed to kind of grow this new story from. He's like, oh, well, I actually, you know, I can just change that because technically the word convicted is only in the title. That's not in the body of the text, you know. So I could see Scott very much taking inspiration from all the things that people were talking about, and then building the story from there when it went to FNAF 2.
Yeah, Scott likes to dip his little toes in the water with things, I realized. Like, so I'm going to say it. I didn't like the FNAF movie that much, the first one. I didn't think it was a great film.
Boo.
I think it was fun, but the reason I didn't think it was a great film is because I didn't feel like it was very confident in any particular thing. And Scott himself said that they rewrote parts of the script for the second movie based on feedback from the first movie. Right. And I think that Scott has always done this. I think he's very like, I'm going to try A and B, and whatever the fan base whatever the, not graduates, they're not going to graduate anytime soon. Whatever the fan base gravitates toward a particular side of the story, I'll pursue that more.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get to it later when we kind of get to 4 and sister location and stuff, but I have like a big, not even like a theory because it's not in universe, but in terms of the meta explanation behind Scott's decisions, I kind of came to a realization recently about why the story took a shift after FNAF 4, and it's fully based on all those reactions to FNAF 4 and
can I make a prediction?
Like yeah, sure.
Because FNAF 4 was ass. In the story.
No,
I disagree. Yeah.
FNAF 4 is great.
God, my little conspiracy. Conspiracy is that Crying Child and Foxy Bro were not originally William's children, and that when he made a blog post somewhere where he was like, I felt after FNAF 4 like I had to make the story something good, and I think he just went with, what if the security guard is the killer's father? And then that's why he made sister location.
The purple guy's son.
The son. Yeah, that's the purple guy's son.
He got entered inside.
Those reveals, we're not to those games yet, but those reveals do feel very well done. I guess I can just leave that thought for when we get there. But I'll try to put a pin in that.
I like Michael Afton's one line of dialogue. It's pretty good. Right. FNAF 2, we have the introduction of real lore through the form of the phone guy calls again, and 8-bit mini games, and also which most people forget, these weird little dream sequences where the puppet is kind of just like looking at you.
In the
anyone like
FNAF
to-
1 restaurant
Yeah.
area?
Yeah, in
Question
the
mark?
FNAF
Like,
1.
what is
Yeah.
that all about? We did skip, I want to say, FNAF 1 wise. It's me. What about it's me? What was it's me?
I think
Is Scott just making up nothing? He's like, oh, that you know what would be
think
spooky is words.
I think It's Me is supposed to be the first hint that, like, because the whole thing that they're ghosts isn't really revealed anywhere, like, in the story. All the phone guy dialogue gives, like, quote unquote, like, reasonable explanations as to why they do this as creepy robots. Whereas the It's Me and the kind of glitchy screens and all that kind of stuff, that's your first kind of insight into this not being just like programming gone wrong. You know, this isn't just, oh, they see a guy in a suit. Because when you're playing FNAF 1, those newspapers don't show up all the time. Like, you're not, like, on a casual playthrough, you're most likely not going to run into those newspapers. So stuff like It's Me, it's like, wait, who's saying it's me? Maybe it's like a ghost is saying it's me. I'm inside the suit. You know, I know MatPat's, I think, original theory was that it was like it's me was the killer's inner monologue or
I
something,
liked
and we
that
were
one.
playing as the killer.
Didn't like the other
think it's
part
a
of his
good idea.
theory, but I like that part.
But I can see that the It's Me is probably like, you know, ghosts trying to reach out from the suit to try and because it seems to be now, even with the week before, Scott's clarifying that It's Me isn't something specific to Golden Freddy. It's like something all the kids seem to say.
Right.
And it's
weird
not
'cause
specific to Mike. It's
it
to
gets-
whoever happens to be
yeah.
there.
It gets said the most when in the you know, we can just do the week before now because that happens around FNAF 1 anyway.
Yeah,
yeah,
true.
sure.
We're doing chronological in those timeline rather than
Yeah.
when they were
Okay.
made.
Are you
So-
referring to the passage where it just says it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me for like 3 minutes that I read out entirely in one of my
Oh,
videos?
yeah.
Well, that's because that happens after the 83 phone call, right? Where he calls Fredbear's Family Diner and he hears the bite victim getting kaputzed.
Is that when that happens? I don't think so. I think he gets bitten just immediately after that. I think the It's Me
thought
thing
the It's Me was
happens,
there. Oh, weird.
It's me's the canon ending
No.
on the second playthrough.
Okay, so
because
when
he's hearing.
when all the
I think it's like
animatronics pull up.
Bronwyn's voice is saying like she's safe, but then also like it's me, it's me, it's me. It's like all the spirits are talking to him at once.
Yeah, so what that could be is there's a very here one of the tropes I'll have to use in my ginormous video that will take me 4 months to produce or more. One of the tropes that Scott has is whenever he has a spirit, they're always confused and lost. They're always like the bite victim, you know, he don't remember nothing. And then Elizabeth needs to be put back together. And then in some of the other books, you have these kids that aren't even aware that they're dead. And so I feel like finding your identity and remembering who you are is a big part of a spirit moving on in FNAF. And so they might, that might be just a reference to them trying to grasp with the fact that they're dead. They're like, what am I right now? I'm not in my body. I'm not dead. I'm not alive. What's going on? So
I can't remember. I was watching someone's video recently about the survival logbook, and they brought up the point that in the crying child, in the word search, along with the opposite the mirror, which says "What do you see?" the word search is filled with altered text saying "It's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me."
Yep.
It's like, and what is your name? It's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. Who are you? What is your name? It's me, it's me, it's me. That's sort of like, I think is a good explanation for it. Is I don't know my name. I'm me. I just know I'm me, but I can't explain what
that's
that
kind of
means.
what I'm saying. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. Especially there is is it a Frights or Tales book? I can't remember, where it's all about like the kid who dies, and I think it's his grandmother like explains that if you don't find your I think it's like if you don't find your body, you don't know.
Yeah.
Or if your body's never found, it's like you'll be lost forever in the ghost world.
It's definitely Tales because they talk about Sun in that story.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, then there's also
Which
It's
I
Me
suppose...
written on a random like bathroom stall or something in and in the movie It's Me is written on the mirror in like dust.
It's Me is on the mirror. Oswald seems to forget who he is in Into the Pit game. When you get that one ending where his eyes become animatronic eyes, he seems to start forgetting where he is and what he's doing. and his name
Mhm.
goes from Oswald to question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yes, very true. Yeah, I think
So
it's the spirits in general seem to have a
Mhm.
difficulty with memory. And that obviously then ties into Happiest Day and how
Yeah.
that's depicted in
Yep.
multiple different ways, but it's usually surrounding a memory of an event which is
Mhm.
changing
Exactly.
or being altered in some way.
The legendary Scott Cawthon consistency.
you know
Yeah.
going back to are we into FNAF 2 yet, or are we still
we can
on the
go.
week
I think
before?
that's enough from the week before.
Going back to FNAF 2, the mini games within that are showing us Afton kind of tearing apart the animatronics, like interacting with them in a more sinister way,
Yeah, you
kind
mean
of
like you mean save them?
establishing the purple guy as our
Mhm.
like big bad.
Villain, yeah.
Yeah.
Which at the time,
Yeah,
I still don't think he was like some evil mastermind. I think he was just a lunatic, like a murderer at the time. You know, I don't think the story got very deep until 4.
yeah, I'd agree. I'd say he was, and the reason he wasn't a named character, he wasn't like someone that was ever given any sort of on-screen presence besides becoming Springtrap eventually, was the idea like he's a faceless serial killer. He's just this
Mhm.
crazy guy who kills these kids. And I don't think any ideas of like him maybe even experimenting or trying to figure out anything about possession, I feel like that even didn't come into it until much, much later, probably around Sister Location, I'd imagine. Um, it seems to be more so that he's exploiting the opportunities that Fazbear presents rather than like somehow needing kids to be in robots so that they can walk around and he can study them or
Yeah,
anything like that.
yeah.
The original, I think, was just like he's a crazy guy and he figured out that he could hide these kids in the suits.
Do you think that even in FNAF 2 that the child that was killed outside, Proto Charlie, was ever supposed to be like his partner's daughter or the boss's daughter, or because in
No.
FNAF 2 they do say like, oh, we need to contact the original founder of Fredbear's Family Diner. Do you think Scott was like, and the person outside was that guy's son?
I don't. I think that it was intended to be the first, just because it's presented as different from the other crimes. So I think that
Mhm.
that murder was intended to be the first one.
Yeah, I think because I always struggled with that line, the oh, we're going to contact the original restaurant owner, because it comes right after talking about we don't have a replacement for your shift yet, but we're working on it. And it's all about like, oh, the restaurant's going to shut down, there's these reports, whatever is going on. And I always wondered why they needed to call anyone from the old restaurant. I never understood what the implication was. Like, we're going to call somebody from the old restaurant to replace you, we're going to call someone from the old restaurant to help with the investigation, but
Yeah,
it's
I
been
think
closed for years. It's a weird line.
Yeah, I think the
I
meaning of
think
that has been
this is
adapted into something.
after.
Sorry.
No, this line comes after they've like kind of figured out like, okay, we have to shut down. Something happened, and that's why we fired the previous night guard. William's been fired. Don't let him back in. We're going to contact, whoever. So I think that they're kind of like, this night guard that we hired is actually the old partner of the person who used to own it, and then etc. I do think that Scott had some plot points planned out during FNAF 2, like for FNAF 3. Like he definitely, in my opinion, had like, Purple Guy's going to become this Springtrap character. He's the killer. He's the final boss of the next one. It's going to be a personal one-on-one fight. He said that in like the doco interview. But yeah, it's unclear, because it's always unclear, like, what does Phone Guy know? What does Phone Guy mean? What does Scott know? Those are always 3 different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find FNAF 2. I'd say, yeah, I think yes, he definitely had ideas of where things were going. I don't think he was just throwing everything at the wall. He had some sense of like, okay, this is going to lead into this next game. But in terms of those like deeper character relations and how William tied into things, he must have been an employee, because if he had 3 planned out in advance, he was aware that whoever the killer was had access to the Springlock suits and was also like being referenced in those tapes, talking about like employee only areas, which is like the safe room where the kids get led to. So I feel like he had that at least in mind. and he threw out the whole idea of that killer ever getting arrested. I think that might be, the retcon, and just getting rid of that idea entirely, because he has to be around after the MCI to be in FNAF 2, and he has to be around in some form of the FNAF 1 restaurant. Obviously, it depends on if you believe it's before FNAF 2 or after FNAF 2, but definitely after the MCI that he's doing Follow Me, has to at least be after Save Them, because it's in the FNAF 1 location. And he gets killed and turned into Springtrap.
Fellas, what do we think of the actual medium of using the mini games? For instance, Gibby, is the DCI a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a DCI?
Okay, so I have so many. The DCI and FNAF 2 in general is just one of the most mysterious things in the franchise, simply because it never comes up again. And so there's three options. There's Scott's a bad writer, and just felt like he never wanted to address it again.
Stop.
Let's throw that away for a second. Number two is that Scott hadn't had the full story planned out yet, and so he can always just be like, oh, that mini game is just like symbolic of a thing that happened, right? Like, I don't think anyone believes that Foxy Go 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 shows 5 new murders.
No.
So he's just like, yeah, Foxy Go Go Go, that was just the MCI, 5 dead kids, whatever. So he could always just be like, the DCI was the MCI, but it's showing the location you're currently in because ghosts. Right. So like he always has that out of just being like, it's just symbolic, man. Like it means whatever. It just means there's dead kids. And then there's the correct theories, which is where you take this information and you just like go completely wild with it. So it could be like, oh, the DCI led to the toys possession, or oh, the DCI didn't lead to any possessions. But then there's like the DCI is him taking the bodies out of the original MCI animatronics, or the DCI is the dead bodies coming back to actually haunt him, or the DCI is a group of teenagers who broke into the restaurant for some reason.
Holy mid.
Or the DCI is, and then you just go on from there. Midnight Motorist 87 DCI kid. There's all that stuff. So there's 2 routes, right? It's like, this means everything. Let's give it a very dramatic backstory. It means nothing, or it was supposed to mean something, but Scott forgore.
Yeah, but don't they say in the phone calls itself in FNAF 2 that something is like, going on out there? Is the line.
There's an investigation as well going on, and
yeah, but then he says because that's the thing though, because Phone Guy is a very unreliable narrator. He's like, it has nothing to do with our establishment. That's probably not true.
Oh no, no, I didn't mean to say like, oh yeah, no, he said it's not, so it's not. Well, my thing
I
with
believe
FNAF
Ralph.
2,
I stand with
especially
Ralph. Sorry, go ahead.
Of all of the original games, and all of them have an element to this, but they definitely, I think 2 is the most prevalent as an example. And I think Gibby, you talked about this before, where the game is intentionally misleading you almost at every turn to basically get you primed to think one thing, and then they pull the rug out from under you at like every opportunity. So the main example of FNAF 2 is that it's a prequel. You don't realize it's a prequel when the game starts, but hints throughout it, like the fact that Ralph is alive. Then at the end, you get the newspaper. All of these things that are sort of set up that you think it's a sequel, but then you pull it at the rug and you go, it's a reboot. Or sorry, not a reboot. Sorry,
a reboot.
That's a Freudian slip.
One, and then immediately was like, "We gotta reboot this.
We gotta reboot it. Reset."
That would have made so much stuff so much easier if you did.
Oh my lord.
But so that's the first one, and then you go, "Oh well, this is a flashback, and they're talking about a killer with suits." A yellow suit in the back. Oh, this must be telling us the truth of what happened to the MCI kids. This is the death of the children. We're hearing about it firsthand. And then you play the mini games and you go, oh, it seems to be that the kids were killed at a restaurant where the other animatronics were active, not this one where they're like in the back. And then you kind of play it more, and you're every single opportunity they're kind of changing something. They're making you think one thing, and then they tell you another thing. And one of them, I think, is this idea that the Golden Freddy, the whole thing. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. That obviously the initial implication is someone dressed up in a suit and lured the kids and killed them, because that's what we assumed happened from the first game. That was like a big theory that Golden Freddy was like the suit that was used. But then that, I think, maybe what we were supposed to take from it was actually that this is some sort of other thing going on with Golden Freddy specifically, because they activate on that night. Golden Freddy activates on the same night as that phone call. So I think what we're supposed to take from playing that game is somebody used the suit is actually something to do with Golden Freddy becoming active, and it's being missed, much like when they say, oh, they see you and they try and stuff you because you're a naked endoskeleton. That's like their rationalization. They're like, oh, well, the yellow suit moved, someone must have used it, and now none of them are acting right. But I think it might be saying the Golden Freddy, for whatever reason, has activated and is now like infecting all the rest of the spirits. Whether it's Casa DCI or not, I don't know.
Golden Freddy mode.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because
I would. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I do think that the video or the mini games are like a very good storytelling device for is because he sets up so well the connection between, and throughout the series, he sets up so well the connection between specifically souls and like electronics, metal. Like they're not possessing chairs. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's always something that's like hooked up to circuitry or has some level of programming involved with it or something like that, or you know, it's metal toys, things like that, that have a function outside of that. So for me, I'm like, especially since reading Return to the Pit, the mini games feel like the kids being like, this is the only medium I have to communicate with you about what happened here. And so maybe they have a limited amount of assets. Maybe they have like a limited. So just because something like when you're talking about like, oh, it can mean whatever it can be, it's like that works better when you look at it from the vantage point of like a child doing its best to recreate a crime scene for you to be like,
wait, the arcade machines are the ghosts recreating events that happened for the benefit of the person there?
Trying to communicate with anybody.
Arcade theory? Yeah.
Arcade theory.
He saw his opportunity.
Those are my babies. See, I can at least say, so Casa DCI was one of my commenters' ideas, but I can at least say that arcade theory was my child before I even joined the community.
Yeah, it's just, but it's such a beautiful like way for Scott to be like, okay, this is a great visual storytelling device. This is great gameplay to switch it up really quick. You were in this night where you're having to manage a lot of different things, and now you're in this really quiet, buzzing, super simplistic thing, walking slowly, unable to change what you see. Like it's so eerie and good. I like it a lot. That's one of the points I'll give Scott is call me a baby, but like I can't play the FNAF games because I get too freaked out and I know everything, but it doesn't matter. Like I know I'm playing a game and I know like the whole world around it that has changed, but like those original FNAF games, I'm like, I'm freaked, y'all. I cannot do this.
Yeah, I think it did.
I was gonna say, would we all agree that we like? Would we all agree that we like the way that the mini games are used in FNAF 2?
Yes.
I love them. My only issue with them mechanically is that they only can happen when you die, which I think from a storytelling point of view makes sense if it is related to the spirits, like conveying things. My only issue with it is from like a lore hunting perspective. It becomes frustrating if you want to play those games for yourself and you just have to load in the game and like die repeatedly and hope you're going to get one that you haven't gotten before. But that's
True.
that's obviously not the way it's intended to be done. The way Scott was looking at it was like, oh, it'll be a secret that like 1 in every 100 people will find.
Mm-hmm.
So on that
from our
note,
modern insane brain rot thing,
I'm jumping.
It's a weird way.
I'm jumping way ahead here, but in that case, Unwithered, would you say that they're done better in FNAF 2 or Into the Pit, where you have to click on a gumball machine for 20 minutes?
Yeah, but again, that's
stand at Oswald's window for 5 hours.
Yeah, just in and out.
I think stylistically, nothing has beaten the FNAF 2 arcades in terms of their eeriness. I don't think any of the arcades, like FNAF 3 was close, but like FNAF 2 has a particular style in those like visual representations of events, which are so unique and so amazing. I don't like stuff like clicking on the gumball for 20 minutes because I genuinely don't understand how anybody even figures those out. Because when I get a game, I like to open it up and try and figure things out by myself. And then when I eventually give up and look up a guide, yeah, but that's the thing. It's like when I give up and I look at a guide and it's like, oh, you idiot, you were supposed to click on the gumball machine that it tells you not to bother clicking on 20 fucking million times. That's when I kind of go, that's a very annoying way to implement like a secret. It's not a puzzle. It's just like random mindless action.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing between FNAF 2 and you just got earlier games and then Into the Pit is Into the Pit treated it like, oh, we're going to make this complicated for the lore hunters to find. They're going to have to click on everything to see what we hid. Whereas Scott was just like, one in 100 people might see this and it'll spook them because they don't even know what's supposed to be going on.
Like
is this a glitch in the game?
Yeah.
Is the game glitching or is it actually maybe FNAF is haunted? Ooh. And then that's what he's going
even
for.
Stuff like Shadow Bonnie or Shadow Freddy, they're 1 in a million chances, or they're supposed to be in the code, and then it's just something that you catch, and you might even do it quick enough that you flip up the cameras too fast to even get a glimpse of what it is, and you go, "What the hell was that?" Or the paper pals moving around the office.
Jackie.
Why are they able to do that, Jackie? Yeah.
My God. Or JJ under the table. That's actually a good one because like no one's ever looking down there.
Yes, yeah, you'll probably miss that even if you're locked in.
Yeah, it would have been so nice of Scott to just like leave the shadow animatronics alone after FNAF 2, but no, they're there again and again. They keep showing up.
Yeah, I do.
Whereas like JJ, she just let JJ die.
Honestly, it's crazy how many of them there are. Like at this point, it's just like okay, like, everybody's got a shadow. Yes. The shadows are something that like I'm just like if we aren't going to flesh them out, why are they there?
All right, so let's talk about now, what do we think that the dream sequences are supposed to mean? I will give my hot take.
Okay.
Ready? Here it comes. Those dream sequences where like you're looking left and right and you're like, wah, wah. That is just live action, give gifts, give life.
Oh, so we're
that's why the puppet's there.
Yep, I 100% agree.
Holy shit.
So we're just in the animatronics.
Yeah.
From the point of view of the haunted of the children
kids.
who are receiving.
The kids coming awake at the first time, and that's why when you look left and right, that's why the other kids are looking at you because they're like, "What the fuck am I looking at? What's going on?"
Whoa. Okay, I actually love that.
Golden Freddy shows up last, which is the same as in that game.
Golden Freddy isn't even in there.
That's not even. Yeah, I'm not even sure that's a hot take. I think you just.
Foxy's not in there though.
There's like Golden Freddy in live action, give gifts, give life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the last night. So the first one is like you look and Chica's looking at you, and the second one's like you look and Bonnie's looking at you, and then the third one is the puppet's there, and I think the fourth one is Golden Freddy's there. Oh,
Golden Freddy's there. Okay, that works then. Because in Give Gifts, Give Life, the puppet doesn't help Golden Freddy. So that's good. That works.
Yeah, actually, hang on. Let me see. FNAF 2 cutscenes. Because I can't remember if
we're in Golden, we're not in Golden Freddy's mask though, right? Are we seeing the?
We're in regular Freddy because we're in the middle.
Okay, so we're good then. We're good. It still works. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So sorry. So Golden Freddy is night 3, and the puppet is night 4. So the puppet is actually the last one rather than the third one, which.
Well, Gibby, I did not expect you to agree with me on that.
No, that's. I think that we're supposed to think that that's what it is because, like, what else is the puppet doing there? Scott intentionally made it the FNAF 1 stage and not the FNAF 2 location, so it's kind of like flashing back to that, which is like I think that it's the entire basis for the theory that the FNAF 1 location and the MCI location are the same building is because of those scenes. I think that's what started that idea.
Yeah, here's another thing to support that. When those mini games ends, like up the top left corner, it says like error in the first one. The first one says error when none of the animatronics move, and then in the second one, when the animatronics start looking at you, that's when it switches to it's me. So you kind of have this idea of like in the first mini game, nothing's moving, nothing's unnatural. It's just
possessed.
like the animatronics looking around. And then when they start moving around and looking around, it's me. So it's again that idea they've just become possessed.
I claim this YouTube short. You three stay away.
Oh my god.
Damn it.
Take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that idea. I think that's the kind of stuff that I don't really know in the story of FNAF 2 what give gifts is supposed to represent. Like, is the puppet, do you guys think the puppet stuffed them in the original version of FNAF 2?
No, I think she might have just guided them to like sentience. I think the kids might have already been like in there physically, but I think the puppet might have been like help them with like individuality or like taking control of the suit itself, something like that.
Giving them like their identities.
Because I'm pretty sure
everything that she's doing is paranormal. It's not physical.
I could be wrong about this, but the reason I'm saying that those possessions are like aided by the puppet is that the other possessions in this series, like Elizabeth, doesn't have dominion over Circus Baby in Sister Location. You have to go in and physically do something to make that happen. And I'm trying to remember if there are any other possessed characters that have sentience like that. That's why I think that the Core 4 animatronics originally were just like, you know, sitting there doing nothing. But what's her name? Charlotte had to actually help them be able to like get up and move around.
My thing with that from a writing perspective is what is like the purpose from like when you're building like this, when you're world building, when you're defining the way your magic system works, the way the possession works in this series, why would you give two separate ways of possessions occurring? One which is just natural, like obviously Charlie must not have had anyone to guide her spirit, and then randomly these four kids have to be guided to possess their suits and require this like guiding force to bring them to life. That's my big issue with the idea of give gifts, give life being like her actually animating those suits herself, like actively through magic or whatever.
Good question. The only way you could stretch that is you'd have to use FNAF 6 and be like, well, because the puppet went outside in the rain, and so its AI broke, and so there was no competing consciousness with Charlie. But the original animatronic,
Okay.
Right? Okay.
But yeah, because like my thought process is like she's giving them agency, not necessarily like they were already possessing, but under like similarly to Silver Eyes, where they're like. In the movie where they're like, we just do whatever William Afton tells us to do because he's our buddy. Puppet is giving them like the knowledge of like, no, you are your own like thing, and you don't like. I mean, I'm being super like esoteric in my description, but like, here's the apple. Eat of it and go.
I think that might be it actually. On Withered, I think that she might be right because Charlie's the only one of those kids that knows William Afton killed her.
Yes.
The other kids might have like, that might have something. Yeah, that might have something to do with it.
Because he wasn't in the suit. He wasn't in the suit when he killed Charlie.
Yeah, that might have something to do with their memories.
Yeah.
And if the idea is also that if your body isn't found and you can't identify yourself, you've got this idea that Charlie may have been found outside the building. She might have been identified, whereas none of the other kids, they were missing, so they never know what happened to the bodies. So that's interesting. I like that.
That reminds me of FNAF. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have one counter idea to this, and it's very much flies in the face of things that I like about the story or things that I think should be the way things are.
Yeah,
but
that's the way it goes.
There's different pieces of evidence in terms of the death order, and some things suggest a Charlie last, Charlie post MCI, and obviously Give Gifts has been. I know, but stick with me. There is this idea that Charlie might have been last, but why then is Give Gifts portraying what we think it's portraying? But what if we went with the idea that Give Gifts, Give Life is actually showing us an unpossessed puppet, which is going through the motions of its programming, and that's why it gives gifts to these kids, because it's like, oh, there's kids here, I'll give them gifts.
Oh my
gosh. It gives them gifts around, and then when they don't react, they're slumped over, and it goes, oh, they must be endoskeletons. I'll put them in these suits because that's what we're told the behavior is. I know that that's an explanation given, but that's also an explanation given in FNAF 2. So it seems to be that like this is like an early thing. It's not like it's been happening for years and they can't come up with an explanation, so they just say that. There could be evidence to say that the puppet in Give Gifts Live Life is actually not possessed at that point. It's operating on its regular programming, and
unless those FNAF 2 dreams, that thing is definitely possessed.
Yeah, but that depends on what that is. If that's a representation of Give Gifts Live Life, yes, fair enough. But it's also the last one to show up, so you could argue that showing up last is an indicator of what order the possessions occur in.
Oh, that'd be weird.
I love how this is like, how do we all feel about Scott's storytelling? But it just always devolves into like, let me try.
We've been on FNAF 2 for like 30 minutes.
I'm gonna figure it out, I swear. Give me 10 more minutes. I'm gonna figure it out.
Anyway, FNAF 2
I
think is good though, storytelling wise. I think FNAF 2 is pretty solid.
I love FNAF 2. I really do. I didn't give it its flowers for a long time, but I've come around.
Yeah, as a game, it's also my favorite to play of the original 4.
Oh, interesting.
Can we do FNAF 3 now? Are you ready?
Sure.
Scott, actually, he concludes a character arc, kind of.
In a way, yeah.
Fascinating. William Afton. Real character, not named yet, but like something happened to him. And we know what it was. That's more than you can say for most of the characters in this. Series.
We know he got, but he kept on kicking.
So would we agree that at the time of FNAF 3's release, that little kid that's a ghost that chases William into the Springlock suit was the spirit of Golden Freddy?
Yes.
Because now I'm seeing a lot of Andrew. And I'm like, please.
No, it's not Andrew with the other 4. No. Makes
no sense.
Like, maybe Andrew forgot his name and thinks it's Cassidy now.
If it's anyone other than Cassidy or Golden Freddy, it's Charlie. But the only thing is, we see the other 4 suits are freed because William destroys them in that minigame. He takes them apart, which seemingly leaves the souls to like float around as little ghost kids. The 5th kid, we never see where the Golden Freddy suit is. We never see it anywhere on the FNAF 1 map in Follow Me. And it's with the other 4 kids. My idea is that if in FNAF 2 we are finding out that Golden Freddy is in some way related to whatever was going on and was a problem, which would also tie it back to the 1987 Easter egg in FNAF 1 being the like code that's associated with Golden Freddy. But if that's the case and they identify it being a problem, like a problem suit, someone used one of the suits we had a spare in the back, and it cannot be Spring Bonnie. I don't care what anyone says, the suit in the back of the FNAF 2 location can't be Spring Bonnie. But anyway, if the problem suit is Golden Freddy, I have a feeling that they immediately destroyed that suit, which is why in FNAF 1, Golden Freddy looks like the originals, because it's just approximating the other characters. Yeah. Yes. So when we see it in Follow Me, it's already a ghost because it already doesn't have a physical suit to latch onto like the rest of them when they go into that room. So I think it makes most sense if it's Golden Freddy because it's the one that's not accounted for. It's a group of 5 kids, and it's also the one that kind of is the most vengeful, which seems to be a continued character trait later on.
The most what? Andrew, no. Yeah, the weird thing about that.
My comment about like, if the Golden Freddy suit was like destroyed before FNAF 1, obviously we only really see it like hunched over in the corner in FNAF 1 and on posters and stuff. But I think Ralph finds it like in a back room, like he opens a door and it's there. I might be confusing that with the new kid, but I think that he finds it. I would also say, as far as like, is the 5th spirit maybe Charlie? Is in FNAF 3 in modern day as the Night Guard, we see the non-phantom puppet wandering the halls. So like the puppet is still active in modern day FNAF 3.
Mhm.
Mm,
And then obviously in FNAF 6 because of Lefty. So definitely not
True.
Charlie.
true.
I always found that so
Yeah.
funny. Just that thing in FNAF 3 where I was just somehow at Fazbear Frights. I imagine it like pressing the crosswalk button and just floating across the street. Woo!
Oh, I just realized. Oh, okay. This is interesting. So, okay, I know I'm building a lot on what I was just talking about with the Golden Freddy being related to somehow what happened in '87. If we are saying that Scott's intention was that Golden Freddy was the event that led to the shutdown of FNAF 2 and was the suit that Ralph is referencing, and not that a killer wore it, but that somebody used it and killed a kid inside of it, then we would have that suit coming back and avenging itself by putting William into the Springlock suit. Now, obviously, that's the theory nowadays anyway, because that's people's interpretation.
I have more evidence.
But what if that was the case all the way back in the day? Yeah, go ahead.
In that statement right there that Ralph gives, we had a spare suit in the back, somebody used it. If that's referring to a Springlock suit, later on in Sister Location, we have this suit was used, but not in the way it was meant to be used. So you would have the term used to describe the act of someone getting Springlocked twice.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Oh,
True.
It does, yeah, that using that phrase twice does connect them, but I'm not sure if Scott is a talented enough writer to do that on purpose.
How dare
'Cause I think
you?
Now we
he's
get
very
back to it.
he's
in the
very
room with us
surface
right
level.
now.
Like he's right there.
what if?
He's
What if?
just right there.
It's like
What if
because
the?
there's no way that FNAF 2 is Circus Baby's old restaurant. So like I don't know if Scott can really do anything more than surface level. Sorry.
What
No,
if-
that's valid.
He makes Token fucking look like a worm.
What if in Save Them, the bloodstains are caused by Golden Freddy teleporting around? Because he can spawn in some of the spots where the
Oh.
bloodstains are.
That's sick.
It's like an Enderman.
That would be a game theory right there. Yo, look at that. You have to look at that after, and then when it's confirmed canon, put it in your reboot video.
Yes, exactly. It's going to
There you
happen. It's in there, baby. But yeah, I think it's definitely Golden Freddy in Follow Me.
Yeah.
Okay, and
And
then
that-
whether it's Cassidy or Cece or
CC didn't exist
Andrew is up
at
for
the time,
whatever.
but CC didn't
Fair,
exist
true.
in FNAF 3, but
Well, whether you know this character that was Golden Freddy, and then Scott's like, I should give Golden Freddy a backstory and made FNAF 4, and then later was like maybe 2 Golden Freddy. So like either way, he may have intended that.
He's like, I'm gonna give Golden Freddy a backstory, and then forgot that he did that, and then it was like, I need to give Golden Freddy a backstory, and now there's 2 souls in
there's
Golden
2,
Freddy.
yeah.
Sorry. It's like, smarts, man. I did it 2 times. Sorry, guys. I just
Yeah.
love that character. Don't we love that guy, that yellow bear? Isn't he great? What color is his hat? I don't know.
God, victim.
so Scott lays it
God
on
victim.
Scott lays it on heavy with the verbal exposition in FNAF 3.
I
Phone
love
guy
that.
just
I
be
love it.
yapping.
He do be.
Night 1 is just yapping. There is no gameplay night 1.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yap fest.
And I love it because I can finish night 1.
I love Phone Dude. He's so funny.
So yeah, all 3
I
of
love
those
Phone Dude.
all those FNAF 3 calls are pretty much just meant to lead up to the big reveal that purple guy is in the Springtrap suit.
Yes.
That's what they serve to do from a
Yes,
storytelling
that's the twist
perspective.
at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we think they say
Yeah, I
anything
think-
else though? Do we think there's anything else that we're supposed to take away from those?
So the kids were lured into the safe room, so they kill the
Yep.
killer where they were killed. That's like why all through the years I've always had a problem with Into the Pit being canon, the original story or the game, because the kids dying in a party room is a huge departure from the heavily implied context of FNAF 3 telling us about this safe room.
But Unwithered, we can explain away all the differences because it's just an agony dream. It doesn't have to be accurate.
Yeah.
It is just an agony. You're so right. You're
Not
so
even
right.
time travel. It's just made up. That's why there's 6
Yeah.
victims.
it's just it's all vibes in there.
I do. We'll
also-
get to it. We'll get to it. Never mind. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I also think that the Night 6 phone call is another one of those switcheroos where you are supposed to think that it's talking about him being boarded up there post Follow Me, but
Yeah.
I actually think that he was not boarded up by Fazbear. Like, I don't think Ralph was still alive when Afton was spring locked and died. I think Follow Me takes place after FNAF 1.
I mean, yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I disagree.
Storyteller.
I could see it.
What did you say again?
The web he's woven.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, it's way too convoluted. He didn't have to make it this convoluted.
I feel like FNAF 3 is like exactly what you're talking, where it's just like, I think this happens before FNAF 1, and it's like we're already all deadlocked, stuck. Like, I don't know, is it? I can't.
Yeah.
Like, can we just
Well,
slap a year on some of
the
it?
big reason why people argue over that is because of Molten MCI is the big reason why people argue over Follow Me so much.
And my argument is that I think that's silly because most people are saying, oh, Follow Me has to be after FNAF 1 for Molten MCI. And I'm like, well, I believe in Molten MCI, and I still think it happens before FNAF 1. You just got to split some souls, man. It's easy. That's what Molten MCI is.
You also think sister locations before FNAF 2. So, I mean, come on.
I think they're simultaneous with each other, but technically, yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
I will say
both perspectives make sense, I guess.
There's no major contradictions
Yeah.
in either of them. It's just like where you want the story to be, or where you think that like Scott would have put the story. I will say, kind of going back to what we were talking about with Into the Pit, is like to talk about let's ignore the story being confusing in FNAF 3. I don't know how anybody did solve any of the lore mini games in that game because they're completely incomprehensible. Without a doubt.
You mean Happiest Day?
All the Happiest Day minigames, figuring out how to access them, and then within them, because each Happiest Day minigame, you have to like glitch out of the game world to do something. So there's like you have to figure out how to get to the game, and then what to do in the game, and then you have to go back and forth and like do them in the right order, and it's just completely insane. I don't know how anybody figured it out.
At least to get to the game, there is the hints during the Follow Me games.
Yeah,
There
BB,
are, like,
DB
in the
click,
West
double
hallway.
click on the Balloon
Yeah.
Boy poster. That makes perfect sense. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny.
That's like the first time I played FNAF 3. I got to one of the mini games entirely by accident because I was clicking rapidly to try to get to something, and I was like, I'm in a mini game now.
Yeah, so
No
you do
idea what to
have-
do.
You do have FNAF 3 is the first mention of like the Golden Freddy spirit in particular, that he's very like important. Like the Happiest Day party is for the Golden Freddy kid specifically.
Yeah, true.
So storytelling, I guess, is there. There's something there.
He is. Yeah, Scott like what does he say? Let me try to remember the phrasing, but like I try to like clear up anything like you said earlier about the movie, where it's like he listens to the feedback and then tries to spin the next game like clearing things up or expanding upon the things that the community is picking up on. And so it's clear that, you know, we're like, okay, what the heck's going on with this golden bear? And so he's like, okay, I'll show you a little bit about Golden Bear. Okay, here you go.
Now, after Five Nights at Freddy's 3, Scott Cawthon decided that shit was on easy mode. It was people were having too easy of a time taking apart this game.
Got it.
So he turned right around, and this is when he became mid and released FNAF 4. And fucking nobody, even over a decade later, knows what happened in that game. And it's not Dream Theory, because he said it. He said it wasn't Dream Theory.
He said it's not.
It is clearly not Dream Theory.
He said it wasn't Dream Theory.
No, definitely not. Definitely not Dream Theory.
I always had a problem with Dream Theory anyway, because I was just like, who's dreaming like that?
Yeah, I also never got like when the dreams of the regular games are supposed to be happening, because we have the nightmares which are occurring, you know, during the week, and we're seeing like a bedroom filled with these like, monsters, and then it's like, oh, and also aside from those nightmares, he's having a fully realistic dream about like a kid, like a guy working in an office over the decades, like getting paychecks and
with like corporate greed, dreaming about corporate greed.
Major concepts of the way like capitalism functions. I don't understand.
That's what Crying Child was so scared of.
That's why he was crying all the time.
Furries.
He's crying Bill.
These are mentioned in FNAF 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a weird idea. I feel like FNAF 4. Scott said that he thought people would get it. Like he said it was.
Yeah,
I don't know how. I don't know how.
Because it's God Victim, and I think it's pretty. It's
No,
such a
I
well-established trope
I genuinely believe
that I
God
think
Victim.
he just kind of thought people would. No, I always have, and I think
No,
that
my
he's
chat
just
thinks
kind
it's
of
a
like
joke. My chat thinks it's a joke. I know. I genuinely believe it.
he sees something
God.
and then gets in a confused state, and now he's like, "Oh, I don't have a body. I'm just kind of a ghost, and I can influence things." And he manifests it into real. Like that happens in so much media that's just. I think Scott expected us to recognize it, and Matt Pat went off the edge. Like,
Yeah. Nervous,
Matt
are you
Pat
familiar with
Well, Matt Pat got it just in reverse. Matt Pat got it, but in reverse. Where it was like, all this stuff is influencing him, when really it was he's influencing all this stuff.
yeah, lay out your best argument for God Victim so that people listening who might not know understand.
Okay.
Unwithered
do
helmet.
you want to take it?
The unwithered yapper, ladies and gentlemen. Unwithered yapper.
Unwithered yapper. I'm back. I'm about to become the unwithered peak. Here we go. So
Never cook again.
Theory. So the God Victim theory is essentially taking all the evidence that's used for dream theory to say that everything's fiction, and basically flipping it on its head and saying that what the bite victim sees in his waking life, once he dies, he becomes like an influential spirit which possesses or haunts the entirety of Fazbear and the company. And basically stuff like the Mangle toy, it's not that there's a toy that's, mimicking something that's going to happen like years down the line. It's that his sister had a toy that was a Foxy toy that got broken up and put back together. So years later, when there is a Foxy, walking around in a pizzeria, it's getting pulled apart because he's influencing the events there. He's influencing, I guess, the engineers to invent like Balloon Boy and stuff. Even the
Getting in their heads.
Like, yeah, Springtrap is influenced by the Finger Trap plush toy. All this stuff is being influenced.
Yeah. The body's getting pushed in the suits based on the one girl.
Yeah,
forever.
it was something that he heard. Yeah.
So you're saying that he put some sort of curse over Fredbears. A curse of Dreadbear, should I say?
Yeah,
yes.
I think it's got a lot of solid evidence. I think it makes most sense. Like even like with the toys and stuff and taking off Toy Chica's beak.
There's another one. Yep.
There's another one. I'm trying to think of all the others. I suppose then you could go into
or just other examples.
Other examples of like his like memories influencing things. I know we call it God Victim. I know there's like a very similar theory. I have to look into it more, but it's called Memory Victim, which is kind of an older theory.
God Victim better,
but God Victim's a better name. But I think it's got a lot of evidence for it. I think it makes sense. I think it actually ties back into that line we were talking about earlier when Ralph says we have to contact the old owner, because the way he refers to the owner, he says the owner of to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner. It was closed for years though. I think what he's saying is that the building that FNAF 2 takes place in is the same as Fredbear's Family Diner, and that's why you have a repeated bite. You have the toy animatronics, and you have Golden Freddy being really important.
He's cooking.
That's huge.
You are genuinely cooking. I smell it from over here. It smells delicious.
What did I say? Unwithered peaks.
I'll let you have that YouTube short. You got that one.
Yeah, you can have that.
Thank you.
That short.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? So if they're the same building and he died in that building and then a few years later they reopen in that same building, he's having a much stronger influence over everything that's going on.
Yeah,
and
it's local.
Wait, hold on. That also means that Fredbear's Family Diner could have the same carousel for the mention in the logbook.
Was your favorite ride the carousel?
Exactly. Yes, that's what I was saying. Because it's got the originals on it. It doesn't have the toys. It has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. So I think that's why it's telling us that, because it's saying your favorite ride was brought to the new location or to the same building, but like vamped up.
Yeah. And
I love it.
there's no toys on that carousel.
And And I also love again, I'm just going to keep bringing up Return to the Pit because I feel like it's the thing that I've paid attention to most recently. But and Oswald feels compelled to do things and he doesn't quite understand why. Like he cannot pinpoint why he feels compelled to do X, Y, Z, but he's doing them.
Yep.
So
the throughout all of the this is like my little pet theory at the moment with my series reading through all the books, but it's in Fetch they talk about the 0 point field, and it's used in that story to explain like how does his smartphone connect with Fetch and how does it read his intentions? It's because like psychic powers exist or something. And you can kind of use that. I use it like very facetiously in my series where I'm like, every time the writer can't think of a reason for a character to do something to make the plot go forward, I'm just like, guys, it's the field. They just have this weird feeling that they need to stand there and watch someone like, and he told me everything, the characters, or no, in the Breaking Wheel, the character's just standing there and watching the other person get spring locked. He's like, I couldn't move for some reason. I'm like, yeah, it's because the author's bad at their job. But yeah, no, the field, the 0 point field can just influence people. And maybe that's how the crying child's doing it.
And this is The Shining, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly. It's the same thing.
It's The Shining. That's what I say that like when I'm just talking about things on my own. Every time there's like a kid who's like doing some, just like, and so this kid in FNAF has The Shining, and that's why they're able to do and contact the spirits. They're just.
Did you guys watch Johnny the Night Guard's video about The Shining and Secret of the Mimic?
I did actually. It's really weird. Really weird.
Yeah. So he sent me a Discord DM a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Tell me if I'm crazy." And we start talking about like he's like her sister was killed because she was hit by a car when she ran out on the road to chase a ball. Do you think that that's a coincidence? I'm like, no, that is clearly what Steel Will's going going for. He's like,
literally, I'm like, I love how many connections there are between the Stephen King world and the way Scott Cawthon story. I'm serious. I'm serious when I say I'm like every little bit of it. I'm like, there's something here, guys.
Even fucking AR Springtrap. It's not your flesh that sustains me. It's your fear. I'm pretty sure Pennywise says that exact thing in it.
And the different manifestations. It's too much. Luring them underground. Who else do we know that has underground horrors?
All right, Gibby.
Yes.
Do we think that the stomach mouth in Nightmare Fredbear is intentional design, or is it there because it looks cool?
Well, I would say it is obviously intentional as a call forward to how Baby's going to kill Elizabeth, because Scott is the greatest writer on earth and knew that he was going to do that. Keep in mind that FNAF World is after FNAF 4 and before Sister Location. Scott obviously knew that 2 games from now in the game series that he was not planning on continuing, that he would do this. No, it's completely a coincidence, but I can also see Scott sort of backwards engineering it. Yeah. Being like, what if Baby
now
has a stomach mouth because of FNAF 4? Yeah. So I definitely was not the intention in FNAF 4, but I can see Scott designing Baby that way so that it does therefore make sense back in FNAF 4.
It's so weird that he gave him a stomach mouth in FNAF 4, though. I just don't understand why.
He was just so hungry. He was so hungry, his mouth was not enough.
I genuinely think Scott's logic was 100% just the crying child got bit. So what would he be scared of? More mouths. Just more mouths all over the place. How many mouths?
That makes sense.
Oh, golden duo, 2 mouths.
2 mouths.
Oh my god.
Spirits.
Oh, one of them was bit on the head.
Yeah, one of them was in the body. Yeah.
No,
I was talking about the Stitch Wraith. I was talking about the Stitch Wraith.
Stop cooking.
One of the mouths is on his head. One of the mouths is in the body. Stitch Wraith.
This is oh my god.
Hang on. We're cracking it.
My name is the fucking Stitch Wraith.
So
why is it like a jazz song? My name.
Where is my ball?
Literally. Oh my god. So where are we? FNAF 4?
FNAF 4 right now.
Yeah, with FNAF 4.
Yeah.
One thing that I had an issue with when I mean, obviously, I'm not saying I was the first person to think of it, but I came to God Victim on my own as I was researching FNAF 4, without having kind of known anything about Memory Victim in detail. But one thing that I did have issue with from the point of view of Scott creating the series with this intention was the idea that the blame, in some sense, cosmically falls on Crying Child for all of the negative events going forward, such as the MCI. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, what would Scott do to sort of counteract that? Because I don't really see Scott, because he seems to be very clear about like William not being a redeemable character. He doesn't seem to have any redeemable traits, at least in any of the mainline games. He's very much like evil through and through. And then I was thinking about, you know, we have this psychic friend Fredbear, and who is that supposed to be? And we have the empty sister's room, and thinking about like what would Scott do to change things up, to make sure that the bite victim isn't the perpetrator of everything, you know, whether it's intentionally or not. If we have Charlie die before the bite victim, if she's the first victim and is killed separate to anything else that's going on, that then means that the bite victim doesn't inspire a man to become a serial killer. He's already a killer. It's just that the methods or the events that then transpire are altered by the way he thinks and interprets these events. And it also gives the reason for the kid to even say that in the first place, because she doesn't say they hide your body in the suits. They just say, if you die, they hide your body. So there could be a rumor going around town about a little girl who went missing, and they can't find their body, you know. So where did that kid go?
That's one of the key points in Casa DCI, where the question would be like, oh, how could Charlie have disappeared if her body was left out in the open? And someone pointed out that like the Fazbear's policy is if they find your body, they cover it up and they report, you know, a missing person after 90 days. So it's possible that her body was never found.
Yeah, I there's also a lot of symbolism in FNAF 4 about the Crying Child mirroring the puppet. And
I remember this debate.
The stripes,
Yeah,
and
so
in FNAF 3, in that Mangel's Quest screen.
It's got the pose,
exactly. CC has the striped shirt like the puppet stripes and is always crying like the tear stains on the puppet. Yeah. Like it visually, that's obviously what Scott was going for, except not because he was just lying,
it's the classic Scott bait and switch. The classic.
My thing. So this is, I know I've talked about it a couple of times before, and I still, you know, I'm not 100% sure on it, but I think it would make sense that if when FNAF 4 came out, Scott's intention was that the bite victim and the puppet were siblings, and that the puppet had been killed earlier.
Girls'
and
room.
That the girls' room that's empty is, I know it's still save him, but the idea that retcon couldn't have happened earlier, especially when Silver Eyes comes out later that year with Charlie,
which we're going to talk about the Silver Eyes. Oh boy.
Oh boy. But the idea that you've got this kid who has a missing sister, who I understand the theory about the girl at the front in the garden being the sister because she's got the other toys, and I think that's a very good theory. But if you look at it from like, why would Scott bother including a whole girls' room when you could have given that room to Michael or a parent figure? Why have a random sister at the front who's not important, who doesn't connect to anything? It would be much more interesting from the storytelling perspective if Scott were to be like, there's an empty room, nothing is said about it, but it's just this, like, it's the only other room in the house that has importance other than the living room and the Crying Child's. So it makes, to me, it would be very strange for him to just kind of add that room for no reason. I think it's more so the fact that it's empty and the fact that the Mangle toy specifically is there is important, because the first ever words we hear about the Mangle from Ralph is, it's a take apart, put back together attraction. And the Fredbear plush at the very end of the game says, you are broken, I will put you back together. So if we have a Mangle toy in the sister's room and we relate that to the Fredbear plush, we have this sort of motif of taking things apart and putting them back together. So you can kind of relate them that way. That's kind of like my original idea.
In original FNAF 4, I think that the plush was the sister. I do not think it's Elizabeth. Because, you know, later on what we learn. No, but I think in original FNAF 4, the plush, the way it talks to you, it acts like a stupid kid. Because here's when you're looking at the plush now, you have two interpretations that you can use. One is that it's a malevolent adult who is like pretending and like gaslighting this kid, like, oh no, bad stuff is going on. Or it's another child that just doesn't know any better. They're like, wow, he fucking hates you, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's a fun connection I found. I don't know if it's at all intentional or just very coincidental. But I was looking into the "Tomorrow is another day" quote from the Fredbear plush, and I was like, that's a weird thing to have it say. I know it's like a creepy saying, and it's a common enough phrase. You know, it's not like you don't necessarily need any sort of reference for it to work. Yeah. But there is a film called "Tomorrow is Another Day," which released in the 50s, and the main character is a man named William.
No.
Who is on the run for murder because he thinks he kills a policeman by accident. So him and his girlfriend go on the run, and his friend that he meets along the road is named Henry.
No. How?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
How have I never heard that? That's insane.
Well, now we have to go is
watch
Scott
party.
Cawthon the kind of person who watches 1950s
in FNAF
films?
4? I think he would have. In FNAF 4, in this game, he's like, "Oh, you guys got the story too easily. What's this? The old time theater is playing this random movie. William, Henry.
Yeah.
The old time theater."
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
at that point, he already had those names in the book.
Yeah, those names were in the Silver Eyes long before Sister Location.
He just Googled 50s movies starring characters named
William
and Henry. And then he was like, that one's a sentence.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that.
I heard this probably from you or like a tweet or someone quoting you that you talked to or something. But how did you figure that out? What were you looking up?
I literally just looked up "Tomorrow is Another Day," and I was like trying to find where it came from as a phrase. And I think originally it was popularized by Gone with the Wind. But then it also recommended me the film "Tomorrow is Another Day," and I was like, "Oh, I'll check this out." And I was like, "Wait, William and Henry are their names?"
Insane.
And it's about a murder. It's crazy. I want to watch through it and see if there's any sort of.
Oh my fucking god!
No.
Guess what the actor that plays William in that movie is? Guess what his name is?
David.
The guy who's masquerading as William is named Steve.
Steve. Yes.
Yo.
Steve Raglan.
I was gonna say
got Steve playing Bill and Bill playing Steve.
I was gonna be like, don't tell me Matthew Lillard's in the movie.
As a wee baby.
Oh, wee bab.
That's
crazy.
That's crazy.
You know what's funny though is we're like, dang, these very uncommon names: William, Henry, Steve, the 50s.
Well, okay. Well, I'll say William and Henry is pretty. That's pretty big.
Yeah, no, not. You know, I missed her. Like, oh, someone quoted something in one of the Frights books. Now I need to go read an entire other book.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is definitely.
You're gonna watch this after?
Something that we have to look in now. Yeah, no, like we have to.
Yeah.
We should. I mean, like, is it in the public domain? Maybe you could just stream it.
I mean, it's 1951, maybe.
A Janet character. That's like Aunt Jane or whatever. I don't know.
I was trying to look at like the name of the detective and stuff. Like, I don't think there's anything.
Yeah.
Guys, he's wearing a suit. He's wearing a suit.
Oh.
Oof.
Blue guy.
Blue guy.
But yeah, that was just something I came across in my research for FNAF 4. So I thought I would bring it up as like a literary reference in the series. But
interesting.
Anyway, not to completely derail things.
Yeah, we've been derailed. That was I'm sure the comments will love that one though. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, FNAF 4. Once again, Scott, repeated trope of his. Unreliable narrator. You can't trust the Fredbear plush. Even if it is a kid just trying to help, can't trust it. Phone guy can't trust him because he's just speaking through corporate speak. Gibby has, I believe Gibby believes, and I think he's right, that the FNAF 4 gameplay, like the night gameplay, was never CC.
I agree.
Really?
Oh, like Scott wrote it to not be crying child.
So you were never playing as crying child. Oh, Gibby's dying.
Oh.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
God, my internet was like, nope.
I just said. Did you hear what I said?
No, the last thing I heard you say, I think Gibby has, and then everything went silent.
Okay, I was saying that you believe that even at the time of FNAF 4, the night gameplay was never the crying child.
Yes, I think that based on the fact that the rooms are completely different, we were supposed to get that. I think that based on the fact that it has the phone guys thing in reverse, this is where I think that God Victim and Arcade Theory are very similar explanations for the events, but they sort of just like pick and choose which event led to which thing and like what happened first. So the FNAF 1 phone call appearing in the FNAF 4 dreams is really weird. And if it's just God Victim, that would imply that the FNAF 1 phone call happened because of this dream, which is obviously not the case.
I didn't fill the game with random Easter eggs this time.
Exactly. I'm so glad that he said that about FNAF 4 specifically.
So that's there on purpose.
Yeah, so like the FNAF 4 nighttime gameplay has to happen after FNAF 1. Like, period. That's just one of the logical conclusions you have to draw from that Easter egg. And then the fact that he's dreaming about the IV drip and the pills, which has always been weird. I think Scott's just like, oh, pills, that's a sick person thing. Because like you're not going to give a kid in a coma like pills. And
then Michael in FNAF movie, what does he use to dream? He abuses
pills in a book and an alarm clock.
All dream theory. That's right.
Yeah, so I think that Scott would have thought that we'd catch that ambiance and that it's the phone call and said, okay, well, if this has to happen after FNAF 1 and the gameplay, the mini games have to happen, before anything, then that kind of like narratively leads you along the line of like, he's revisiting the 8-bit mini games as sort of like a flashback, like he's dwelling on those events while also having these dreams where whoever's dreaming is put into the body of a child based on how tall they are. Now the monsters are coming to get him. I think that
picked up by the monsters the same way the crying child is picked up by the bullies.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that Scott, the conclusion we have now that you're playing as Foxy Bro years later, like dreaming about this stuff, I think is exactly what Scott intended when FNAF 4 came out.
It's guilt.
Yeah.
All right, and then
Matt was so close. He was so close on the GT live stream.
He was very
saying
close.
that the guards are all the Foxy Bro. He was like right there.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Fun with plush trap is weird.
Incomprehensible.
in FNAF 4, now we can say that was like part of William's game, and if the experiment victim could beat it, they'd get tortured for 2 less hours. Now that like that,
Rory,
now that got turned into Jigsaw in the newest like iteration of the lore. Back at the time of FNAF 4, I don't know why Michael be dreaming about scary plush trap on the floor. That doesn't make no sense.
Yeah.
He's just having a hard time,
Box.
And I know that we're not at sister location yet, but just like the idea that Scott's intention was clearly that this was a physical location, but also was not the house you were dreaming in, and also was not the house that the mini game takes place in. Like what?
I'm trying to figure out what the like symbolism of fun with plush trap is. Even like
it's nothing. Again, I think the modern theories are like
truth. There are 4 closets. In each robot kid.
And
he was writing the book at the time.
Nightmare BB is the only canon Halloween DLC character, and he replaces Plush Trap. So I could see some argument to say that Plush Trap is in some way real. I don't necessarily agree with that, like at the time of FNAF 4's release, but there is an argument to be made that like the only canon one is the one which replaces Plush Trap for some reason, which is very strange as an idea. I don't really get it, because it's also the most like real as well, because there's like a tape X on the floor. It's like it's not even dream logic. It's like someone put down tape on the floor and you have to specifically stop it there. It's so weird.
The box.
Yeah, and then like we always have to ask ourselves, like, story versus gameplay. Like, does the fact that it lets you skip 2 hours, is that story important? Like the thing that people say now, where they're like,
now it can be.
Yeah, William, it's part of the test. If you succeed in test A, then test B, you're tortured for less.
Yeah.
Or it could be that Scott needed a mini game, and so he's like, oh, this is a thing that makes sense.
Yeah, so is the idea, I mean, I know Didophobia has changed our perspective on FNAF 4, but like...
Midophobia.
Is the idea, now that he was like seeing how strong these children were, just like of being a weirdo and being like, how long can I keep somebody trapped down here, confused
Unwithered
about
and I have a
when they
absolutely
are.
cooked theory.
Okay.
On
All right,
Rory?
ready? Unwithered, no, on the purpose of of sister location chambers.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
is literally spawning Shadow Freddy.
Oh,
He's
like
attempting to
Agony,
create
yep. He's creating such a
a
large amount of agony in one place that
Oh.
it forms an entity.
Oh,
because
interesting.
it would make the end of the FNAF 4 gameplay representative of like a successful experiment that Nightmare shows up
Yep.
as the like final boss.
And also, I'm your wickedness
Um,
made flesh. Is he's literally dumping all of his
Yeah.
wickedness into this experiment, and finally it becomes something.
Oh, yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Man, y'all think
Mm.
about this stuff a lot.
Oh, I'll be in
I
class.
will
I'll be in
say-
class
Too much
like,
time.
wait a second. The nightmare mode is called Shadow Freddy. Like, wait a minute. What is
That's
this?
got to mean something.
I will say that Mike does say that recently he was dreaming about Nightmare in the logbook, and
Yes.
if the logbook, quote unquote, has to take place after FNAF 3, then William's been gone for decades. So I don't know about all that.
Well, it depends on how you look at the dreams,
It's
because
actually
some
Nightmare Fredbear. It's
people
not
think-
Nightmare, but yeah. He dreams about
Just the
Nightmare
whistle
Fredbear.
gods.
Oh, okay, facts.
Some people think that the dreams that Mike has around the time of FNAF 3 are replayed memories of his experiences of the experiments, or that at some point when Scott decided to make these like experiments, he was like, okay, Michael didn't go through them. He had them as dreams, but retroactively there were also experiments which were based on his dreams. So Michael had these dreams for years. He told William about them, and William turned them into real chambers. And depending on
this
who
game
we're playing
sucks.
as,
It's a bad
I'm saying,
storyteller.
you know-
you notice how we just
Throw
have
him away.
we've gone from like, oh yes, 8-bit mini games with the puppets to now we have fucking nothing. And we're just like, what if the guy who was dreaming
Okay.
told his dad about the dreams, and then his dad made the dreams into a
Right.
place with a tape X on the floor?
so
Yeah,
this
there
is
was tape on the floor. I swear to God.
William put that tape there.
Will tape.
He could
Will
build
tape.
life-size robots, but will tape.
Will tape.
Will tape.
So this is what I was alluding to earlier, because I was like, for so long I have always been like, why in God's name, regardless of everything, did Scott decide to make? Because I don't think there were Nightmare Chambers when 4 came out. I don't believe
No,
that.
no,
No.
no.
So
That
I
is a new
always
development.
wondered why, when making Sister Location, did Scott decide to make Nightmare Chambers and like introduce this new element, which doesn't really go anywhere, like until Didophobia 10 years later. Like there is no reason in Sister Location to imply that any of FNAF 4 is like a physical location and was made of chambers and whatever. Even the mini games, you know, have the breaker map showing these observation rooms which look like the FNAF 4 map. And I
Yeah.
was like, what was the purpose of that? And then I was thinking about it, and I believe it was on one of your streams, T-Dreads. Somebody brought up that the opposite. So basically, Scott made FNAF 4, and the main theory that came out of it at the time was dream theory, and that was the most prevalent theory there was. So
Yeah.
Scott didn't want that to be the case. He didn't want that to be the interpretation. So his solution to dream theory was to say that nothing in FNAF 4 was a dream, including the dreams. The things that we thought were for sure dreams, like that were literally called the nightmares. He was like, this game is so not dream theory that I'm making literally all of it real and physical and can happen in the real world. So
Suck
he
it.
was like, exactly. He was like fighting dream theory by saying all the stuff you thought was real, or all the stuff you thought was a dream, like confirmed, it's not even a dream. None of it is. It's all real and it all happened. And that's why he came up with this nightmare chamber thing, not as any sort of like extra part of the lore. Even, you know, like I like the idea that he was trying to make Shadow Freddy, or trying to, you know, if God Victim is real, maybe William was trying to make his own God Victim. I kind of like that idea. I've been thinking of that recently. But like,
I am become
it's-
Shadow Freddy.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like it's purely a meta thing for Scott that he's like, I don't like dream theory being the prevalent thing, so I'm going to make it so that there's no way of defending that theory anymore because it's all real, including the dreams.
Scott does love a meta moment.
Mm-hmm.
He loves reminding us that he's got us by the throat.
Yes.
He's
true.
like, yep, you're eating whatever I give you, and here it is. The
And
nightmare
that
chambers
bear-
are real, and I put Steve Snodgrass in them, and he made
Yeah.
the games, and the games aren't real, but they are.
Why do we
yeah,
think?
and like
I want to ask. I'm curious on Gibby's thoughts in particular.
Mhm.
Him refusing to say what FNAF 4, or sorry, him refusing to say what FNAF 4 was because would the community accept it that way? The community hated Dream Theory. That they hated what they thought it was. So I don't know why he wouldn't lead you in the other direction.
that was pre-Dream Theory said that, just to clarify.
Oh, that was? I thought that was after.
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, because
I'm
yeah,
pretty
'cause,
sure
well,
that
in
post was
Matt
pre-Dream
Pat's
Theory.
Oh, we're cooked
video
then. We have
about
no-
Dream Theory,
oh, dang.
he's like, see, he didn't think the community would accept it this way because if it was a dream, that'd be really disappointing. And it's like, what wouldn't we have accepted? Because I feel like we've accepted a lot at this point.
That
Like,
was the Halloween update, wasn't it?
Hang on.
The
let me
Halloween
double
update.
check
The Halloween
this.
update was
the
when he.
GT Live.
No,
where
I'm
Matt
talking about
Pat
when he
came up
says
with Dream Theory.
some things are best left forgotten forever. That post.
Yeah.
That's after the Halloween update, isn't it?
Would the community accept it that
oh,
way?
I'm pretty sure that's after Dream Theory. I thought.
But yeah,
when
The GT Live stream and the Game Theory episode were at different times.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean because it might have been on the
So
stream.
yeah, when he posted that, Dream Theory was
yeah.
conceived of.
okay.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But anyway, Gibby, why didn't he
Okay,
answer it?
yeah.
Why didn't he tell
Yeah.
us? No.
Because he didn't want to tell us anything.
True.
I don't even think he likes that we know William's name. I think that pisses him off. He's just like, I shouldn't have told him. I shouldn't even
He keeps
told him.
changing what William calls himself. So
Literally, well, like even now, like Edwin, I'm just like, so was Henry not real? Like, is that what we're supposed to know now? Like, please don't do this to me.
Technically, Henry's name's never in the games.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Edwin.
we could just be like, I don't know what in the world gave you the idea that Henry was real, you morons. You read my books that I wrote and put out in the world, and you thought that it was supposed to help you. I specifically told you this is not the same story.
I do love
Like,
the
okay.
timing of the quote unquote Dave discovery in the logbook. Because if that's true, and I do personally think that that's true, and if the books are canon, and that's how it's looking right now, that means that two of the people who were instrumental in like Freddy's, right, Edwin and William, both had
Both.
younger sons named Dave who died
Yep.
tragically and then impacted the rest of their work. And
Yeah.
I'm like, does that make it less likely that Crying Child's name is Dave? Does that make it
Yep.
less likely that the books are canon, or is Scott just maybe? I know it's like unthinkable.
I'll have to steal that one from
Might
my
he
Scott
be
reusing
a
things.
bad writer?
My Scott
Might he be a
reusing
bad
things
writer?
video.
My
No,
what?
Not a
Stevie?
bad writer.
Sorry.
He said, "Might he be a bad writer?" No.
Might he be a bad
It's
writer?
impossible.
Oh, because he's got like a list of names and he scratched off David, but then he's like, but they didn't figure that out. So could
Exactly.
I just? And so
Do
then
it
he's like, I'll
again.
just make the other kid. And then he's like, he made the other kid David, and then Hyperdroid solved the logbook, and he's like, no,
This was the exact worst timing for that.
you can't solve it. Stop printing it. Stop printing it. It's so
Anyway, moving
like-
on from this. So first of all, I think FNAF 4 was handled poorly story wise. I think that he could have done a lot
bad.
more. Yeah, could have done a lot more to.
Don't put it on us. He's like, I thought you guys would figure it out. Like, well,
Yeah.
get over
Come on, bro.
yourself. It's your job.
You're not
It's your
Tolkien,
job.
bro. You're not Tolkien. You're better. You're better. No. Go ahead.
Sorry, I did confirm. I believe that post that Scott says about the Halloween update is August, and the GT Live was in October. So it was before Dream Theory.
Oh,
Boom.
Gibby, we're frauds.
Really?
We're frauds.
I love being right.
That's fascinating. Okay.
It's the first thing I've been right about since I started theorizing.
So when he says with the community accepted that way, the community at the time had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, because
Oh,
not a
no.
single person found the
I've
piece.
been
The
spreading
story remains completely
misinformation on the
hidden.
internet. No.
Well, that to me, God Victim is still an answer to that. No one knows what's going on, and he's like, maybe I shouldn't have made it that the ghost has magical mind powers. Maybe people won't like the story going in that direction. He then proceeded to not care and made sister location completely sci-fi.
I was about to say he's like maybe they hate supernatural. I'm kind of getting the vibes that they want it to be science fiction now. So are we going to talk about FNAF World, or are we going straight to sister location?
Neither.
Oh.
Fuck you guys.
Oh,
I recently subjected myself to the Silver Eyes trilogy. Again.
Yay!
Now the first
I've only read the first one.
The first book's actually not bad.
In full.
It's
really not.
It's very down to earth.
Yeah.
Which made me absolutely mind blown when he just, with the Twisted Ones, he just started just
Woof.
snorting crack. I don't know what's going on.
Scott
He's like
Cawthon
Stephen King had it right.
Like I'm serious, bro. It's
so
like
true.
it's because like in the Silver Eyes it's like, okay, let's go kids, look at this, we're in our old hometown, here's this abandoned mall, creepy guard, that's weird, we're in a pizzeria, animatronics, oh no, now he got spring locked, the end. That is the structure. Very simple. Twisted Ones, you get like 20 pages in, holy shit, there's fucking holes in the ground with white plastic shells that have magical discs that make them look like they're got boils all over their skin and they're real creatures, and there's underground circus baby pizza world. Like it's insane.
Charlie mastered robotics in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's exactly what happened in the games, though. It's just that the games are less explicit about their story, so it doesn't feel as jarring playing them. But that's exactly what happens.
They aren't written out in narrative. And then it gets even worse in the fourth closet. In the fourth closet, it gets even worse. You were a robot, Charlie, this whole time.
I guarantee Scott must have known, at least from Twisted Ones, that Charlie was a robot. I think it's arguable whether or not there's any foreshadowing in the Silver Eyes. Because, like, if not, what's the other closet for?
I read it.
Where's the fourth closet? What is the closets? What are the three closets?
Yeah, I think he knew. It's just unfortunate.
You think from the Silver Eyes she was a robot? That's crazy.
I think that he didn't tell the author of the Silver Eyes that she was a robot.
Okay.
And I think he's like, include this weird closet thing, because I'm Scott Cawthon. I can't tell anyone my story, even my ghost.
No, literally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like 100% Gibby exactly that thought process. He doesn't tell the people who are writing the story all of the information, makes them put things in there that we don't understand yet, and then reveals them later, which makes the twist harder to have like guessed, because the author also did not know what the closets were there.
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say
J.J. Abrams mystery box.
I'm gonna say it. Everyone was losing their fucking minds because in Into the Pit, the game, there's 6 out of 5 kids. That was not a direction. They just fucking read the book and they were like, oh, I guess there's a 6th one.
Yeah.
I guarantee you Scott wasn't like, guys, Mega Cat, you are a company. I work very well with those. Let me communicate my intentions, which I've always done.
Which I've always done.
He said he didn't talk to them for over a year during the development of the game. He just checked in on them, and they're like, "Hey, so Scott, we made it like a real game now." He's like,
"No,
okay.
I bet he went, okay.
Take out old man consequences. You're good."
I bet he fucking put a Fiverr gig on there. He put him on Fiverr. He was like, "Code a game based on my book. Goodbye," and they just did it.
No,
I need a voice actor. And it could be a boy or a girl. You kind of just do whatever you want.
A little bit.
Kind of vibe it. Yeah.
It's gotta be vengeful.
His instructions for Baby were like something insane. Like, this needs to be something that you trust, but also might be a little sneaky sometimes. You know, it's got to be very sweet voice, but also menacing. I'm like, either he knows exactly what he wants, or he has no idea what he's saying.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense for Baby, like based on how she is portrayed in the final game. I'd say with my take on the Into the Pit game was because a lot of people were spreading this like quote that I think it was DJ Sturf said that like, oh, Scott was changing things to fit the lore, which is not actually what he said. What he said was, I don't know, I wasn't there for those meetings, but I know some things were approved and disapproved
probably
for the game.
Eleanor and OMC.
Well,
we're
my take on it, from my video about the Into the Pit game is that Scott did not go through with them and go change this to make it fit with this thing that I have in mind. I think he was going, oh, this is just like a fun side game. Take out anything that like sounds like a hint, because stuff like GGY and the arcade, stuff like Garrett's Plane, they're obviously non-canon Easter eggs. They're just for fun.
Tell that
like,
to FNAF Twitter, buddy.
Like a no, I know. But anything that is like so simple, bog standard, like any Freddy's universe could have it, like a Fredbear poster, yeah, keep that in. But anything like, you know, anything very specific about the story, anything
they took out the baby poster.
Like,
they took out the circus
baby poster, but that could be seen as a hint. You know, if that was in there, he could go, oh, people are going to start using that to like make theories around, you know, and she's got green eyes, so this will have to be like before. Yeah, so I think anything that could have been used to actually build a solid timeline, which that game doesn't provide anything really. That was stuff that he took out, or was like, oh, I think you shouldn't have the puppet in Oswald's basement, which is one of the cut content things. The puppet is like in a puppet, like in a Jack in the Box in Oswald's basement.
Clearly that's a reference. Yeah, that is a reference. I'd say that's like a reference.
Yeah, but he had that taken out
because Larson should have that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like,
well, Citrus shouldn't exist at this point. So
true. Into the pit.
Obviously,
I think he was like,
I don't even care about those.
Oh, it was also why he took Vanny out of the mini games. They had Vanny in all those
that
mini
was
games
weird.
at one point,
that
helping
was
William
weird.
with the MCI, and they had Old Man Consequences.
Oh, that would have been so cringe. Oh my god, that would have been so cringe. If Vanny was doing the MCI too, that'd be so lame. He was pink guy.
That was the joke.
Along.
I was like, that was the joke I made in my video. I was like, you know, FNAF Twitter would have been flooded with like, Vanny did the MCI ? Solved. You know, like. That's why those kind of things were taken out. It didn't add anything to the lore, but anything that was like a direct hint or could be used was taken out because he didn't intend it to be a part of the canon. He was just like, oh, it's a fun side game.
But it just doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't. Yeah, they'll get it. But they don't.
No, yeah, we never do. Scott, like, if you're listening, you're not. But if you are, we never get it. We never understand.
You think we're learning? You think we're learning? We're not learning.
We'll go to FNAF World. Now, this is why I get so confused, and I'm sorry, because I know like at least half the fan base believes Cassidy receiver for Happiest Day nowadays. I think FNAF World is so clearly telling you that it's Bite Victim. That
Crying Child, right? Yeah.
But there's a very large chunk of the.
I think Withered Circle is telling you that, but it's clarifying.
Even Withered Circle still thinks that Cassidy is the receiver of Happiest Day.
Yeah, he just put out a video about that.
Yeah.
Which I feel like you have to ignore all of FNAF World for that to work.
Yeah, which I mean, Scott would like you to a little.
And the party was for me and all that stuff. Like, come on. I feel like it's very clearly
on the take a bite out of fun.
Secret logbook stream.
I know.
Yeah. Withered had a great point in that video. He basically said like a lot of people will point to the tables lining up between FNAF 4 and then Happiest Days being evidence that it's the Bite Victim, but like realistically, they're not actually the same. They're facing opposite directions. There's no kids there in FNAF 4. Like, if it wasn't the exact number of tables, I don't think people would have connected them, and so it's possibly just a coincidence. And him saying that maybe Withered said that, and that did make me think like, oh, that might just be a coincidence, but there's still so much more evidence that I do still believe.
I'm talking about the subtext of Happiest Day itself and what we know a Happiest Day to be, which is taking a kind of corrupted memory or a bad memory and making it good. That's always been so with Millie, is that her name? Millie?
Yeah.
In Counterways? Yeah. Yeah. So she has a particularly painful part of her past with family life, and Jake corrects that aspect of it, and she is able to like move on and rest. And the crying child, his Happiest Day would absolutely be if he had like a nice birthday party, like because that's where he died. It works so much better for the Bite Victim.
I agree, narratively,
as a narrative. And we know that Scott Cawthon is the greatest
is evidence
writer.
That it's not true. I was going to say it's evidence that it's not true, because it's satisfying and it makes sense.
The Happiest Day receiver is actually William Afton.
This all goes back to his childhood.
Yeah, he's just a broken boy.
He's just a broken little baby boy.
All right, sister location soon. I'll let you finish that thought, but after this, I'm just gonna let you guys yap about sister location, how much it fucking sucks. Go ahead.
Jeez. I think with FNAF World, it's just like so hammering home the bite victim connections to Happiest Day. I think there is enough in FNAF 4 even to get there. And at the time, another thing that GT Live, which was so close, is at the beginning of that stream. I can't remember his name. He's the other guy on the couch with Matt, but he literally is like, it's kind of like Happiest Day. It's like a reverse of Happiest Day with the kids with the masks. He says that out loud, and then they're all like, nah, and they move on.
That's ridiculous.
Crazy.
Shut up!
Yeah.
Get
That's
out
ridiculous.
of here.
It's obviously a dream.
I think we with the
And they were all
golden,
dreams.
With the golden duo idea, I know T-Dreads, we had our whole like unhappiest day moment on stream, but I liked the explanation that if there is 2 Golden Freddy kids, and the bite victim is this sort of like god victim idea, that it could be that Cassidy is receiving the cake, but that Happiest Day is the bite victim. So like his memories are being used to construct
that's on Happiest Day. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the other kids are entering his memory and taking the place of him and the other bullies. Because if you think about it, the other bullies weren't the MCI kids. They have nothing to do with it. Yeah. So there's no reason to necessarily say that the person who's at the end of the table has to be the same one that was present during
he's watching like a play.
Fight.
He's watching something.
Yeah. So like that's how Andrew gets set free in the citrate stingers, where Jake's having the happy memory about like, I'm at the baseball game with my dad.
Into it.
And he just sucks Andrew up, so now Andrew's just at the baseball game with his dad and he gets set free.
So I could see it being like that.
Andrew.
I think in that stream we had the idea that like what the puppet does, if the puppet is Spooky Eyes in FNAF World, is she links all of the MCI spirits to bite victims' memories intentionally, so that bringing them all together will sort of free all of them. So she is the reason that they're all sort of split around the different FNAF minigames. You could even argue that might be what Give Life is, and that she's like spreading his memories around and then putting all of them back together in one, hoping that it will free everyone, but it only frees bite victim, which is why he's not really in the series past FNAF 3.
Now then, funny sci-fi tangle wired entered inside of him.
Well,
so I would say, me personally, it's so difficult to say I don't really enjoy the direction and like the extent to which like Remnant plays a part. It's hard to say that now because it's such a humongous part of the story now. And so it's hard to.
I think I definitely had an issue with it at the time when it came out. It was very much against the more mysterious paranormal stuff that I quite enjoyed about the series.
Yeah.
But it's become so ingrained in my idea of what the series is that I'm like, it's part and parcel with it. And it's like, I can reframe the series in my head to being about this guy and like pursuing a goal. And it's like even the kind of direction that I'm pursuing in my, reboot idea is keeping that element of experimentation and understanding the unknowable. It's an interesting angle, and I think it is a cool concept trying to blend the sci-fi and horror, mystery, ghost aspects of it.
Yeah.
It is just such a stark departure if you're just playing the games from the previous ones, that it just feels like such a left turn out of nowhere.
I do like the I do like Michael Afton, the arc he has as a character. I think that was well done. With the amount of like context he gives for it, I think Michael maybe even more than anyone, like even with just one speech, you can really understand what Scott was going for with his character.
Yeah.
That's another thing. There's voice acting in this game for the first time, and I've seen all the interviews with like PJ Haywood and stuff, where he says that Scott is very particular about his instruction for all of the voice actors, which would seem to imply that he wrote something impossible.
No, I think as a solitary work, Sister Location is quite strong. Like I think it's a well made like work on its own. I think it is. I think at the time the jarring thing was in context of the previous 4 games or 5 games, if you include FNAF World. It just felt like so different.
Got no replayability.
Like story or gameplay?
Yeah, it's got no replayability.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, really both, honestly. I mean, like obviously
Story
FNAF World is its own strange creature.
Yeah. It went from something that was, very mythical and supernatural to being something that was like, no, there are now underground bunkers built by a mad scientist, and he's like experimenting and shocking these robots and like taking their insides out and putting them into other robots, and and suddenly then you were like, oh, there's not just a core amount of kids, or at least at the time we didn't necessarily think of Molten MCI, but we were like, so there's like other kids, and are the Minarinas, are they other kids, or what about the Biddy Babs, are they possessed, or like what's going on with everything there?
And I do hate that aspect of Sister Location. I'm sorry, especially with the 4th closet, where William is literally just like an evil genius in that book, and then you go to FNAF 6, and then you go back to FNAF 6, and he's back to, hello, I'm just an evil guy. So
but you know what? I actually
could have tread the line.
It carries over.
I think you could tread the line.
My thing is that's what like this is just a blanket statement about the series, and obviously we're being tongue-in-cheek and talking about things we like and don't like, and as a series I think it's an amazing thing, but my biggest issue with any version of FNAF that isn't the games, that actually is like readable or watchable, whether it's the movie or the books or the novellas or whatever, I always don't like the characterization of William. I always find him very annoying.
Yes. Soy Afton.
I find him like soy.
Even in the movie.
I always find him very cartoonish.
Yes. Yeah.
In the movie. Symmetry, my friend. I'm like,
he doesn't talk like that. He doesn't talk like that in the games. But in the movie, he's like, oh, how you doing, Mike? I got a job.
Yeah.
Like so
even in the Silver Eyes, there's a passage which I every time I hear it or read it, I'm rolling my eyes when it's like, Springtrap pirouettes into the room and does a little flourish, and I'm like, ugh, I know what you're doing. I know you're trying to make him creepy and like over the top and dramatic. I much prefer the very quiet. I could not like imagine Scrap Chair. I could not imagine Scraptrap like la 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 la. I'm doing a pirouette. But then you have the Mimic, who's based on William Afton, doing pirouettes in and it's much
VR.
Yeah, it's much closer to that version. That's what I mean. I think the original series making William so mysterious helped a lot with my investment, because I could project what I wanted Afton to be like and sound like and look like in my head onto it. And then but anytime it's depicted outside of that, he's like a super villain.
Well, nobody envisioned Soy Afton. Nobody was like looking at like all that terrible things this guy did and envisioned him as that.
It becomes then he is more cartoonish as a villain.
I don't like the way he's depicted.
Like a horrendous psychopath, like a Dahmer type. He becomes a supervillain that's like, I'm going to experiment on you, children. In the Silver Eyes trilogy especially, it's not appealing. He's got his bathrobe on.
Oh, it's so lame in the 4th closet. It's so lame.
I know the graphic novels up that a bit, but
maybe it's just like a matter of trying to be like, oh, how would this freak attract children into an area? So he has to have this like playful, weird side to him that exists. I'm just trying. I mean, this is me. Maybe I don't need to be trying to justify.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just I think it was jarring to me the first time that he was depicted in the Silver Eyes, being like, oh, he's like playful and like cackling about how he's gonna get his little minions, the robots, to come after
him.
He's modeling.
Yeah. Come play, little children, like that shit. Come play, little children. I just don't like the way Scott depicts him, and even in like FNAF 6 in Fruity Maze.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
God.
In FNAF 6.
Yeah. Yeah, where he's come up behind Susie.
Yeah. You could like, he doesn't have to be sounding like
that's
a
way-
whoa.
yeah.
You like, you could just have Spring Bonnie be like a very gentle and caring. You know, like, oh, don't worry, he's over here, like that. That would be a much better. That's the direction I would take with him, as opposed to, well,
That's
don't
valid.
worry, Susie, he's not fucking dead. Oh, zoinks.
I don't know if Scott would have read it that way. So, yeah, it's obviously it's a taste thing and it's a tone thing for me rather than anything about it like being good or bad. It's more so tone, and I do feel sort of taken out of it when I'm imagining this horrible, because the acts. This is like an overall thing as well. Yeah.
You know what's funny? That way I just described William being like, don't worry, he isn't dead. That's exactly how you depicted him in your with that kind of
I didn't want
luring.
to say it. I was like, I don't want to be like, well, you'll
no,
really
I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, you put him more as like a comforting. He comforting the kids. You're not alone. That's way better than whoa.
Yeah, the way I was looking at it was like, you know, if you're an adult looking at this from an outside perspective, it's unsettling because you know it's a grown man in there talking like this to kids, but like the kids don't realize that. They're like, they see a big rabbit being like, oh, don't worry, I'll be your friend, follow me, you know, but it's like, really it's this creepy guy, and he is putting on a voice, but it's not, you know, he doesn't bring them into the back room and start dancing around and whatever. It's like, he breaks the act. Demented man, like it's an act that he's using, you know, against them. But yeah, this is another thing with the series as a whole, which I think maybe the shift happened in Sister Location as well, but the treatment of the horrendous nature of the series and the shift of it, I think, as a fan base as well toward a younger demographic, especially with the modern era, like the Steelwool era.
Yeah.
Like, child murder is a horrendous topic for a horror series to go into. Like, you know, you've got slashers where it's like people killing, you know, adults or whatever running around, and oh, it's a demon, he's coming after me. But it's like, this is a story that the main premise revolves around a guy luring children from a restaurant and like murdering them and putting like and stuffing their bodies into suits,
desecrating their bodies.
Horrible. Yeah, and it's like, and then it becomes over time where he's like
more age appropriate.
How could I resist a promise such as this? And I'm like, he's not a monster. He's not a snake. You know, he's like a decaying corpse in a suit that's been like avenged against you. I don't. It's just tonally, I think the series made a shift at some point to more closely match the audience that it was drawing, because it obviously is like. Yeah, and it's like, obviously, you know, kids have always been interested in horror, but I think it was a huge, if not the
FNAF
perpetrator of like horror for kids, you know.
And then,
how do you guys feel that William has portrayal? Gibby and Nervous. How do you feel about?
We've been yapping. We just been yapping.
Athens, yeah.
I've been pulling it all in, you know.
No, I'm very. I guess I don't have a huge opinion, because to me, like, I can almost not even square the circle that Purple Guy and William are the same character. Just because to me, Purple Guy is like the guy who just kind of killed some people one time. Like, he's the murderer. He just killed some kids. And then in Sister Location, suddenly he's like, she can dance, she can sing, right? And, you know, he's presenting to, I think when that game first came out, people were like, oh, is he talking to the police? Like, who's he talking to? I think now we know it's like the board of one of the companies.
Yeah.
Got to get someone approved.
Yeah, he's like, oh, he's Elizabeth's father, and he built the robot for her. And then that's also around the time when people were like, oh, he's the plush in FNAF 4. So, and this is where, like, you know, will care sensibilities came in, where it's like, he's building robots for his children. He cares about them enough to tell them not to go near them. He's telling his one kid he's going to put him back together. Maybe his motivation the whole time was resurrecting his son. And then, you know, this happened and that happened and that happened. And so it's kind of like putting what little pieces there are together to try to, like, make a character out of this guy. And then by the time FNAF 6 comes out and he has, like, 7 lines of dialogue, and it's like, you're just kind of like not paying attention to his characterization anymore, because people kind of already have like their built up perspective of what he is. And when he's like, oh, what a deceptive calling, but I knew it was a lie, obviously. It's like, oh, there he is, little Willy boy being silly again.
Yeah. I much prefer like once he gets spring trapped that he is more like an animal, like just wandering around. I like that he doesn't talk in free. I prefer the idea that he's like, and he's like not even conscious, like in the same way that the others aren't. Like Gibby, you always say it's not the kids like piloting the suits as mechs. It's like they're broken and they're confused and they're scared and they're lashing out. I like the idea that Afton's sort of in that same state, because I think a lot of time when people are depicting Afton in even fan works or I'm sure it's probably how they'll depict him in the movie, it's like it is just like he's in a mech suit, because that's kind of even how they do it in the fourth closet. It's just William, but he's got a big suit on him, but I much prefer the idea that he loses a lot of himself once that happens, but it's the terror of like all of the horrible emotion and anger that's in him is being channeled through this like unstoppable undead monster that's coming after you. It's like that's terrifying. Yep. And then when you make it a guy who's like, I'm going to repair myself and go and find Henry. I'm going to have my vengeance now that I'm an immortal rabbit. It's like, that's what I go a little bit like, I don't know if I prefer it that he loses something when he becomes Springtrap. And doesn't just like get a cool costume.
You even got to remember with Baby, right? Like I think most people think like, oh, Springtrap or Scraptrap, and Baby have like a lot of like their own personality within the suit. Elizabeth and William are actually in control, where some of the other people aren't. You got to remember that Henry's line is like, sorry, Elizabeth, even if you even remember that name.
Yeah, she's more
so
like an animal.
Baby isn't Elizabeth. She's just kind of more conscious than the others. Like her desire to make William proud might be the baby programming as opposed to Elizabeth's personality shining through. So it's always, I'm always very, very hesitant to be like, oh yeah, and then this person, because they got trapped in this suit, now they are that animatronic. I'm like, no, I think they're just kind of like animated. I love that word. Animated by the spirits inside them.
Well, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, in Sister Location, Baby does go through that like transformation when like at the end when they kind of get shifted into Innard when it's revealed that they're actually Innard as all this one entity. But like she's like, you got to take this piece of me, and then when she gets ejected, she becomes Scrap Baby, and Scrap Baby is more the like, oh daddy, and like more like aware of her connection to Springtrap, whereas before that she seems like her own kind of rogue entity who's like just desperate for the surface in some capacity.
Yes, I fully believe that the really little green chip thing that you take out of her is like the baby AI etc.
Yeah, whatever that program
the
is.
Mimic virus.
Which is
no.
And therein lies the real question is, now that there's the Mimic and the Mimic's been here.
I have it on good authority from T-Dread's Twitter account that Baby is the Mimic.
True. I don't think Nervous knows that joke, but
okay, I was like, I don't go on Twitter. I did a
stream. I did a stream where I had ChatGPT generate the entire FNAF lore, but every 5 minutes I had to feed a prompt from chat into it, and they'd be saying shit like Henry gave Mpreg birth to Eleanor, and so at the end of it, I put the entire timeline, as much as I could before I got shadow banned. I put the entire because they muted and shadow banned me because I posted
better FNAF Twitter did
no Twitter itself, because I posted like 30 things in 1 minute.
Right.
But anyway, so they and like halfway down the thread, it's like Henry, overcome with grief, notices his belly begin to grow. Out crawls Eleanor. Some shit.
Oh no!
It's funny.
That's tragic.
Yeah. So that was one of the prompts. Speaking of Eleanor,
I was gonna say
Frights. How do we feel about Frights? Because that is still. That's the last thing we'll talk about. I'll leave the security breach era for another time.
This is the cutoff. I think is fair.
How do we think about Frights?
Well, before we go to Frights, should we talk about UCN? and 6, I suppose, like because we haven't really talked.
Oh yeah,
about,
we haven't even
conclusion.
got there yet. Jesus, I felt like we were kind of going into
Yeah,
UCN.
we got
going
to
into
6.
it.
We got
But-
through 6. I
Yeah.
think we got through 6.
Yeah.
I
So
really
UCN.
like the
But then,
story
like,
of
as the
6. It was
conclusion-
gorgeous.
Yeah, like the as a story, how do we feel 6 is as a narrative conclusion? Like
I
Henry
loved
Great.
it.
burning.
Good. Yeah, I
It
think
wasn't
it's good.
perfect, but I loved it.
Yeah, I
it
think
was powerful.
For as
yeah,
much
it's
for as much character interaction as the series gives you, that's about all you could have hoped for. You know, you're not going to get some epic
Yeah.
monologue between Mike and William, like, well, you fucker. You know, so,
Could you imagine?
Father, you're a rabbit. Get out of my
The
room.
director's cut of FNAF 6 where they're allowed to say curse words.
we both smell like ass.
You
Oh,
turned me
God.
into a corpse.
He's right behind
Yeah.
me, isn't he?
I guess we're both purple guy now.
Looks like you've been
But
yeah,
spring
I think-
trapped.
God.
Jesus.
I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah, I thought it was a good.
But it did a good wrap. Yeah. I mean, it gave a lot of, I mean, obviously, it seems like maybe things were not put to rest the way that we thought, but it was like a really nice, like, I'm gonna end it. Henry, presumably, whoever HRY is, disappeared and is like, now I've got to do something about it. I've got to be the one who comes back. And then it like, oh, I didn't intend for Michael to be here, but he is. And kind of just giving everybody a nice, like, final bow at the end of everything with that speech.
Yeah. Even presentation wise, that is just so well done. Like the voice acting, the music, even
Yeah,
the
I think,
visuals, the simple visuals.
That was
of the
very well done.
Fire slowly
Truly.
crawling in is great. Something I
Yes.
think that is like underappreciated in that game, and it's something because most people's exposure to that game and the story is just that final cutscene and watching that over and over again. But there's this like underlying current that that Henry isn't like this paragon of virtue. He's not like the best person ever. There's sort of this hint that there's more to Henry than meets the eye.
Yeah,
'cause,
he somehow helped and all
on
that.
any of the other endings of the game, like not necessarily that he was part of it, but like if he was the owner or the somehow involved in Fazbear Entertainment, which he seems to be at least by 6, because obviously he's running this version.
Yeah.
He's obviously got that corporate greed that we see in the rest of the series doesn't seem to come out of nowhere. And in the stuff like the Insanity ending, you get sent away in a van like to go to an asylum forever, and it's like
True.
that's controlled by Henry. Obviously, it's not the canon ending, but I think there's implications in that game that Henry isn't this perfect character, and it is kind of like a very, very grim way of finishing everything, is like locking them all into a building and burning it to the ground, and also being like, Michael, I'm pretty sure you don't want to leave. I'm almost certain you're gonna stay. Like, don't even bother telling me. I'm sure you want to die as well.
That's
It's
funny.
like Michael could be like, no, let me
There
out.
was a way planned out. I will not be telling you how.
I think it's pretty well done, and I think it's a nice narrative send off to everything. And then the epilogue of UCN is a, while confusing in parts, is also just
I like how we skipped Midnight Motorist. Good call.
Oh yeah,
The greatest
I
writer
feel like
on
Midnight
earth.
Motorist. Yeah, it's supposed to solve 4. I think it's supposed to do something with 4, with all the different
It doesn't
connections.
solve
Seems
shit.
to hold that game, but it doesn't. No, I don't think it does.
That is his
I
biggest
think
whiff. That is his
Scott maybe
biggest whiff.
Thought it was clear?
Yeah. I think he thought it was
It's-
obvious.
it's
I think
weird.
Scott thought it was obvious. Because
Yeah.
he said the whole
Yeah.
game is about tying up loose ends. So I think Scott thought
Yeah,
Midnight
and
Motorist was
it's
obvious.
one of 3 games that's like important to the resolution
Lore
of everything
Keeper or
of the
whatever.
Lore Keeper ending. So it's like, to me, it seems like it's supposed to be telling us about something, and the fact that we have a minigame about the MCI, we have a minigame about Charlie's death, and then we have a minigame about something. I know, Gibby, like you think it's another MCI thing.
Yep.
I personally just think that if you've got 3 minigames, they're all needed to wrap up the whole story. That the third minigame should be about something else, something unique. And it seems to be, like with the rainy house in the middle of the woods, that's kind of evoking FNAF 4 imagery. I don't know, though, what it's supposed to be telling us, other than maybe like the death order or something. But even that, it's very shaky. But anyway, yeah,
UCN.
we're not
we
solving
can
the
go to
dead murders
UCN.
right now. Yeah.
I really like UCN, but UCN is what made me love the Vengeful Spirit as an entity.
I love Andrew too.
And yeah, Andrew is
You're
mom. And
Aye.
I think that they do a good job exploring, like, I guess what the pitfalls of justice, right? Like the idea. Candy Bunny has
Yeah,
a video
I saw her
about like
video.
how FNAF explores justice, and this is something that, like, one of the big parts of what got me into like really studying Five Nights at Freddy's is because, you know, the Vengeful Spirit is trying to be like, you are the worst thing ever and you shouldn't even get to rest. Like, you should not even get that. But in that becomes the mystery of like, oh, does anybody get to pass on because of this Agony mess? Is everything an illusion but Cassidy and the Vengeful and William? Like, what are the consequences of this? Like,
Yeah.
hell?
She's hurting other spirits.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen it's like a source film animated series on YouTube, the interview series.
I've heard of it.
An interview with Withered Bonnie, or an interview with Chica, or an interview with, whatever, Nightmare.
Yeah.
It's funny because the series starts as like this kind of SCP parody where all the animatronics from every game are like in a facility where they're all being interviewed, and then over time it starts to build up like its own lore and expanding on it, and it becomes it's weird, because it's like the animatronics are fighting like military ops and they're like chasing them down in helicopters and stuff. But there are some amazing like story and character moments in there, and one of them, which I love, is the animatronics, like Charlie and some of the others, have captured William, and then Golden Freddy shows up with the MCI, who are depicted as like the Phantoms, and Charlie basically wants to kill William, and Cassidy says, Charlie says, I understand why you hate him, and Cassidy says, you obviously don't, because if you understood, then you know why he can't die. He has to suffer. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that the Vengeful Spirit inspires. And this idea of he's so evil and he's done so bad. He's done so many bad things in the world that he has to just suffer this horrible fate for eternity. And the idea of letting that go, if you believe that that's what the Old Man Consequences ending is, I think that's a very nice end, while still giving you the catharsis of Afton like burning forever.
Yes, all of that symbolism was so powerful to me that I'm like, I still want to get like a neo-traditional tattoo of a red alligator that's like, leave the demon to his demons. Like,
that's cool.
Nice.
I have this picture in my head I was like, oh man, Consequences is so cool, and I don't even know who he is or if he's even an alligator anymore.
Yeah, I always, because people collate the ending, the 49-20 ending of Golden Freddy twitching into the darkness, and they connect that to the Old Man Consequences ending of Cassidy moving on. I personally see them as opposite endings. You've got a good ending and a bad ending, as you have all the games from 3 on, where the good ending is the Old Man Consequences, where Cassidy does move on and the game crashes because UCN literally can't run after that point.
Over. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas the other one, William beats the hardest challenge that Cassidy can throw at him, and the image of her twitching into the darkness is like, this is going to go on forever. This is the bad ending, because no matter what Cassidy throws at William, he'll always beat it, and there's no point in this continuing forever, which I think is really beautiful, if that's what the symbolism is. I don't know if it is, but that's kind of my interpretation of it, and I think it's really interesting as a concept, like these two different outlooks on, like you were saying, like vengeance and revenge.
Yes.
Yeah, and then at the time, before any of the mimic stuff, people are like, oh, Glitchtrap is William. That interpretation would be like, if Cassidy does let him go and then he goes and gets punished for eternity, versus he beats the game and then escapes into Glitchtrap somehow. So either way, yes, I do think that that's the bad ending.
Yeah, I do like it, the idea that if he does escape, my favorite interpretation is that Cassidy is the princess and is trying to undo the mistake she did by like keeping him on this plane. Like I kind of like that idea that he gets out and it's kind of her fault because she should have let him move on. She should have, let him go.
Yeah.
But then she is sort of trying to undo that. But it gets to this thing of like the multiple endings where the game could end at 3 or it could end at 4 or it could end at 6, 6 or 7 or and it's just
but never.
Yeah, never.
Going into perpetuity till we're all scrawling back again.
Super old.
Yeah.
So about the Vengeful Spirit.
The Vengeful Spirit? I was gonna say I wanted Gibby to give like a best and worst of Frights writing so far, the highlight reel and the low light reel, real quick, because you probably have more experience with those stories recently than any of us do, like recently.
Yeah, you've got it fresh.
Go ahead. What's good and what sucks?
It's so funny how some of them are actually genuinely good pieces of literature, and then some of them are just complete garbage. So I'm doing my series where every week I'm going over a book, but I'm actually far ahead in my reading than those videos are coming out because I'm going to be away for 5 weeks, and so I need to do like a backlog of 5 weeks worth of videos. So like I think I just did In the Flesh, but I'm actually I just finished Gumdrop Angel reading it. My favorite story in the entire series is The Real Jake, and a close second is The Breaking Wheel. That one is just so disturbing and scary and visceral, and it's just such a great setup and payoff. I love The Breaking Wheel. Phenomenal book.
Oh.
Like genuinely, like those are my two, like these are like actually, S++ tiers. Like if you don't even like Five Nights at Freddy's, you can just read those two books, those two stories at least, and be like, this is some good literature.
Because weirdly enough, they have the least to do with like actual like animatronics and Freddy's and all that shit.
Neither mentions Freddy's even once.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure like Jake, I'm pretty sure in The Real Jake, Freddy's is not even mentioned, and it's not mentioned in The Breaking Wheel either. Like they don't mention Freddy's in The Breaking Wheel either.
Not at all. Those are the two where it's not mentioned.
Scott Cawthon, stop writing FNAF. You're better at other stuff.
Yeah, you just talk about anything else.
Yeah. I've so, because I have like a, degree in literature, and like one of my things that we always did is like the professor would like assign a short story to read, and then we'd all go home and read it and annotate it and then come in the next day with stuff to talk about and talk about it as a class. And I'm like, God, if I was a professor, I would just give kids, The Real Jake or The Breaking Wheel, like, come into class and like they wouldn't know that it's Five Nights at Freddy's, but I would know and I'd see what they all say.
Yes.
But yeah, then there's stories like The Cliffs, which is garbage.
Holy man.
And Lonely Freddy, which I think is just one of the worst. I think Lonely Freddy and He Told Me Everything, which is Fazbear, are two of the worst things I've ever had to read.
How dare you insult Peak? He pulled out his tooth and it grew into him. Oh my
God, it's so the story is just so stupid. It's nonsense, and it's even like the quality of the writing is juvenile.
They ripped off the Mandela catalog. Alternates, they stole that shit.
Oh my God. Oh, and Blackbird. Blackbird's like half a good story, and then the part that you can tell that Scott wrote is just not good at all.
Well, I have a question about He Told Me Everything.
Yeah.
Is it like the professor that takes them on the field trip? Is he in on it? Like, does he know the kids are getting turned into goo?
Okay, so ambiguous, but definitely yes. So just a quick recap. This kid, he's like a freshman in high school, and he's taking an advanced science course. So he's in there with like sophomores and juniors, and he's trying to like befriend them because it's a morality tale, and the morality tale is like, don't be cocky, don't be egotistical. He wants to move on from his silly little freshman friends because he's only friends with them because they're like nice to him. He wants to be friends with smart people who will, give him good contacts in the future when he's like a genius billionaire later in life.
When is Elon Musk?
So he's in this class. Yeah, when he's Tony Stark or Elon Musk, yeah. So he's in this class, and the teacher is like, okay, so like the second weekend of school, the school year, we're going to do a lock-in where everyone stays in the classroom overnight, and we do a big fancy science project. And he's like, wow, I can't wait to do that. And then he goes in and does it, and the teacher's like, okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to open your Freddy Fazbear brand science kit, and there's some Faz goo in there, and you're going to rip out a tooth and put it in the Faz goo and then just sit and watch. And I gave you all cubicles, so you're going to be in cubicles so you can't see what everyone else is doing. and you're going to be sitting on a cot, and you're just going to watch and wait what happens and see what happens. And he's scared by this. So he goes home, and because he's a nerd, he's kept all of his baby teeth. So he takes one of his baby teeth in to do the experiment with, because he doesn't want to actually have to.
Did he just die for anyone else?
I think he just died.
Oh, they told him everything. Oh no, they got him. All right, I'll finish. Okay, so they take.
Got him.
So he takes one of his baby teeth, right? And he puts that. Now I don't exactly remember why it's a baby tooth or something. I know something goes wrong with his. The way the experiment is supposed to work. The way the experiment's supposed to work is that these kids, they take out a tooth, they put it inside of the. Oh, he's alive.
Hello?
Oh, finish. Thank God. I almost had to describe Fazgoo whispering in your ear and telling you sweet nothings.
That would have been a nightmare.
The Fazgoo got me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I told you everything.
It told me everything. So the teacher tells them, like, okay, so what's going to happen is using your DNA, the Fazgoo is going to become a mouth, a human mouth, and it's going to whisper a secret to you that you will never forget. So when you're done, you're going to throw away the living mouth you just grew into this garbage bag. And then you get to go home. So already,
This is what the teacher says.
This is what the teacher's telling them. So already, this is like,
Yeah,
like,
I would
well,
definitely. I would be so
lock-in.
down, guys. I'd be so down. I'd be like, that makes perfect sense, teacher.
It's not a lock-in, and the teacher's telling them they have to pull their teeth out, and the kids are just supposed to accept
with no Novocaine or nothing. They just got to yoink it.
Yeah,
he says rip out a back tooth because your wisdom teeth would push it out into space anyway.
How badly did these kids want this grade? Wait,
it's
is
high
this
school
is this
science class.
Is this even
He's
for
14?
Is this even for a grade?
Yes, so this is he explicitly says this is 400 points of extra credit.
So is he supposed to be like Eleanor or something, or like another Fazgoo monster?
Yo, that would be huge if he was Eleanor.
I think he's just a mad scientist. I don't think he's Eleanor based on the Stitch
William
Wraith. I don't think
Afton.
that this is Stitch Wraith canon.
Yeah, they don't call it out, right? They don't because
No.
I've read the Stitch Wraiths, but I have not read Fazgoo.
Yeah, he's also this teacher's been
Crazy.
the teacher's been at the school for years, so he's just like actually a teacher. Which also means that Fazbear actually sells these little kits. Anyway, but like the twist of the story, the quote unquote twist, is like it's debatable. So because technically our main character, I think his name is Chris, because he uses his baby tooth, his takes the longest. So he's sitting there on his little cot, and he hears everyone else leaving their cubicle and going to the teacher and saying, "Oh, he told me everything," or "Oh, she told me everything," for like the little mouth. And he's like, "Oh man, everyone else is finishing their experiments besides me." And he's like, "Oh, maybe mine's taking longer because I used a baby tooth." And the teacher comes and checks on him and is like, "Oh, well, yep, sometimes science can behave in mysterious ways." And so then the kid's sitting there, and then he goes and he lays on the cot and he falls asleep and he wakes up and he keeps feeling weaker and weaker. And then one time he wakes up and he's missing an eyeball, and he sees that the Fazgoo has his eyeball. And then the best part of the entire story is he's like, "Oh no, I have to pee, but I'm connected via like an umbilical cord to my growing mouth thing. So I'd have to break that to go to the bathroom. It's going to be so embarrassing to tell the teacher that like after all this time I'm going to fail the experiment because I have to pee." And then suddenly his bladder empties and he watches a mysterious liquid travel across the umbilical cord. And then some weird liquid appears underneath. Weird liquid appears underneath the experiment. And he's like, "Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Did I actually just piss myself? What's going on?"
I hate this.
Oh my!
But you forgot the part where he tells him everything.
I cannot wait for your video on this. This is free.
I'm so upset.
Yeah, it just keeps sucking in his organs, and it grows to like be like his size. Then he realizes that he can barely move, and he starts accepting that it's just literally him. Now keep in mind the whole time, like part of the conceit is like that when the students are done, they go and they tell the teacher, "He told me everything," or "She told me everything," meaning that main character can hear other people in the room talking. If other people in the room are talking, he can hear it.
Yeah.
So he's sitting here and he's dying. He's understanding now that this thing is going to become him. It's going to clone him. It's going to be a new him. And he's like, "I really should have appreciated my family and my friends and not just wanted to leave them to go be a rich billionaire or whatever." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's the moral of the story. I get it." But he's talking to the clone and he's like, "Okay, so like your sister's name is like Tabitha and your dog really likes belly scratches and you need to be nice to your neighbor because she's such a nice old lady. you want to go into rocket science, so make sure you study rocket science. So he's telling him all about his life and his hopes and his dreams so that the clone can go out and live this life for him. And then the book ends with him dying and all of his organs get sucked into the new Fazgoo. And then the Fazgoo stands up and slops all of his, like, the original kid's, like, skin and whatever into a bag, and then goes to the teacher and is like, he told me everything. Haha. Get it?
Twilight
he told me everything.
Twilight Zone odd twist. Twilight, how to serve man odd twist. How to serve man odd twist.
All the kids were turned into goo.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is that he would have heard the other kids telling their life stories to their mouths.
Yeah, exactly.
And-
There's no way you would just be able to hear.
Yeah.
The
You
ones
can hear
outside,
the-
Les was all
But not the
in
others.
his head, and he didn't realize it. He was.
They had
it was all
acoustic foam.
telepathic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
oh my
technically, you could interpret it that his was messed up because it was a baby tooth and that everyone else's experiment was normal. I just don't think that that's a likely explanation.
God.
Yeah,
I'm
but
so
and then
sorry. I
all the
can't get
kids
over
said the
fact
same
that
thing,
he's-
and then all the kids said the same exact
Mhm.
way. He told me everything, the same sentence. Come on.
Yep.
I cannot believe that by the time he's like pissing into the Fazgoo, he's like, "Oh, I'd hate to leave now and lose my grade." Like
Looking at this
the
monstrosity in
second
front
I'm
of you.
throwing an umbilical
Wait,
cord.
is this
the second
after
I
he
lose
has no
an
eyeball? Is this after he has no eyeball?
That may have been before he lost the first
Okay,
eyeball.
okay.
We do get a description of the second eyeball's journey through the tube. So he loses the first while he's asleep, and he's like, for some reason I can only see out of one eye, and then he feels his eye socket. He's like, where's my other eye? But then we do see he's like, oh, suddenly everything was blind, and the eyeball was squelching its way down the umbilical cord.
For the
Beautiful.
love of-
The second you get a fucking umbilical cord attached to your science project, I'm leaving. I don't
Yeah,
care
that's
if
what
I
I'm
get
saying.
kicked out of school. I'm
Not worth,
But
not
it-
worth.
but it-
Especially when it drinks my piss.
So to be fair,
Yo.
to be fair, it had already absorbed like half of his organs, but he does try to cut it, and he ends up blacking out because his lungs or whatever are in the Fazgoo. So if he cuts the umbilical cord, he's just going to be missing organs and he'll be dead. So he can't.
That is
Oh my
crazy.
God.
It's like The Substance, but
Yeah.
worse.
I hate that movie.
But by Scott Cawthon.
Yeah, The Substance by Scott Cawthon.
Because I'm wow. Okay, I'm floored that that's the story of Fazgoo. Because I knew it was like about the Faz kit and the goo is in the kit and whatever. I did not realize it did all that shit.
I knew the goo
Goat
had the
coffin.
cloning property.
Goat
Like that's
coffin.
what
Yeah.
I took away was that I was like, this goo means clones, and that's
Mhm.
that. But I did not know the specifics of the process. That's unfortunate.
That's so funny.
All right, I think this,
Because I was surprised when you went through the Mpreg story. I can't remember what it's called.
In the
in the
flesh.
flesh, the best
Best
book on the
book on
earth.
the-
In the flesh.
Because it made Matthew Patrick
so
fucking
I
give
was
birth.
surprised when you were going through it because I was like, you know what? From like a literary point of view, I quite like the way that they're handling like us disliking him because every line that you read from his perspective talking about other characters and like his
Mhm.
girlfriend and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I was like, I hate this guy. It's really effective at making me hate him. And then the way it's describing the actual body horror situation is quite effective. But it's just that it is mixed with this weird like fetish thing that I know wasn't intentional, but it was surprising to me. I was like, oh, this is not just like complete slop. Like there is some thought put into this beyond just like, it's such a funny series. I find the Stitch Wraith the strangest arc of anything. The whole like getting rid of Andrew like 2 seconds after we like start to get to know him, just being like yeet him into another dimension and he never comes back. It's so weird.
No one withered. He's the most important character in the whole series.
Sorry, you're right.
Scott made us wait like 3 years
Yeah,
after
to reveal
UCN
the
to
secret
finally
vengeful
learn who the
spirit.
vengeful spirit was, and it was Andrew, which is why his story is so satisfying, which is why we never learn how he died or anything about him,
It
and he
was
gets
not Cassidy.
yeeted away into Jake's memory and then is never seen again because he's a vengeful
waiting.
spirit.
He's waiting
There
another
you go.
3+ years to reveal it in Secret of the Mimic. You idiot! Oh my god.
He was
I
the
just-
first victim.
I just like the whole Fazbear Frights argument for like it being a part of the games. It doesn't. I don't like. I'm like, you guys can interpret the series and like live your lives and do whatever you want, but like the animosity surrounding it, I'm like, you guys have to concede that there are very, very, very good reasons to not
Yeah, to not believe
believe
that.
Yeah.
This is a part of the canon. Like, just shh with me for a moment and think about it. Like, I
Especially
can't.
the what was that? Is it the Dance with Me, the Ballora one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that
Babies
it's like a
is
circus
open.
baby's open. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like so it's not canon then. There's no
Yeah.
way.
No, well,
It's-
Fazbear in the Pizzaplex era just really wanted to use the
Open,
brand of
yeah.
circus babies, and so they opened another one.
Yeah,
You
or it's all in
know.
VR or something. I don't know.
Guys, I gotta go in a sec. We gotta wrap up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Closing thoughts. I'll let everyone say one more thing.
We're all just like, okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Overall, I do not think that Scott is a very good writer. I do think that he is a good world builder. He needs
Gibson?
help.
Oh, Gibson, how about you?
He needs help, like
Definitely,
emotional
yeah,
help.
like an editor maybe.
Help wanted.
I think that we'd be living in a much different world if the day that he started collaborating with other people, he just sat them down and told them all the lore so that they could actually execute his will. I think he wrote the Stitch Wraiths himself, and you can definitely tell that they're the worst written, even though I hate some of the stories in the Frights. But the Stitch Wraith are just so... There's no subtext. There's just this happened and this happened. And then we learn about like what kind of box Larson is looking at. And I'm like, I don't know what like is going on here. But I just think that he needed help, and he was so in love with like the world he made. And when you have a world as expansive as FNAF, it can just become your playground. You can tell so many different stories in a world with those rules, and that's awesome. But if there's no character that makes you want to continue to, you know, follow along in the story, then it's not as compelling. And I love Michael Afton. And by Michael Afton, I mean my headcanon of what Michael Afton is, because he's literally not a character.
True.
And I think that if Scott had
He's my goat.
I think if he had made the Silver Eyes, like a version of the Silver Eyes that was canon, or a version of Frights that was canon, then there would be so much more like love and like characters in the franchise for people to hold on to, instead of just like every time Andrew comes up, because like he could be a cool character. The problem is that whenever he comes up, people just start yelling about if he's canon or not. No one even talks about him as a character.
Because there isn't much there. I'll be honest.
Even Jake. Like, I love Jake. And before this, I just kind of knew that, like, oh, Jake is maybe kind of like the crying child in this scenario. I'd never heard anyone talk about who he was as a person, or what his life was like, or like all the stuff he went through. They're just like, he is a crying child parallel. I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, so I want to hear about stories. I want to know what's going on. I don't want to just solve the lore. The lore needs to be attached to a good story.
Right, Unwithered Sigma, how about you?
Unwithered. That's me. That's my name. Don't wear it out. So I think that Scott obviously has provided such a huge like aspect of my life growing up. Like FNAF has been a huge thing, and I really do love it as a series. I think obviously there are narrative decisions which I want to put my head through a wall when I'm going through. There's certain tonal things which I don't necessarily like or agree with, you know, when I'm engaging with the series in media external to the games. But I will say that I think even if behind the scenes the narrative decisions that are being made are driven either by, you know, wanting to keep up mystery, or wanting to obscure things, or wanting to, you know, fix something that he didn't like in a previous game, or go in a new direction, you know, those things can be frustrating from like a lore figuring out point of view. But I think Scott's real like strength as a storyteller is in his presentation of ideas and of, like you were saying, Nervous, like the world building. I think he's really good at like setting an atmosphere and kind of letting you absorb that world through that atmosphere. And I think so much of the fun of FNAF over the years has been like, you know, observing and trying to figure out like the in-between bits, and we can kind of come up with our own like narratives for those. So I think he has a really great, you know, like Steve from Minecraft, as you said, T-Trets, he's great at building a foundation.
I'm Steve.
And presenting it that way. So I think that's Scott's real strength. And it's maybe why I don't necessarily engage as much with the books, because I do often get to points where I'm like, I don't know if this tone or this like style of story is for me when it's laid out so directly. I'm more interested in like the character dynamics of people that we barely get to know anything about, and kind of filling in those gaps. But overall, Scott Cawthon is the best writer on earth, and he does make Tolkien look like a worm. So
thank you.
There you go.
So true, so true.
Amen.
Yeah, I'd say I don't know, in the video I made talking about like FNAF lore and then Poppy Playtimes stuff, Scott oscillates between storytelling that is incredibly blatant and overly like descriptive and obvious, and then he goes right back to just the most cryptic shit you've ever seen. And then on top of that, I just think I disagree with, or maybe I don't disagree, but I do not like how one-dimensional the characters are and how little we know about them. I would like an actual story that is written with like, okay, here's what's going to happen in Act 1, Act 2. I would like, and they've been doing that more so with Security Breach, because now the characters have actual dialogue and motives and all this stuff. So I'm sure in Security Breach 2 we'll learn more about Gregory and Cassie, and it looks like Escape the Pizzaplex will teach us about Cassie and Gregory as well. And so like we'll actually get to learn things about the characters, and we'll actually know something, as opposed to like Michael Afton. What do we know about him? Fucking nothing. So yeah.
But do you think if those were presented that you would be happy or satisfied with those answers? Because that's more my thing, is I don't know, based on the other works, if I would be satisfied with those interpretations if they were given to us flat out, of Michael.
Yeah,
or of
it's difficult because now everybody has their different interpretation of who Michael is or who William is. So I don't know. I think depending on how much it differed from mine, I'd be okay with it. I wouldn't want it to be like he was actually helping William the whole time and accidentally burnt him or some shit. Like that'd be terrible.
He tripped over a wire in front.
Yeah. No,
Ridiculous.
father. No.
We find out the Youth Troop's actually canon timeline is literally just what it is. You're like, oh no.
Oh god.
All right, that will do it for today. So everyone subscribe to our guests Gibby, She's Always Nervous, and Unwithered Truth. There'll be the top link in the description. And subscribe to me, or I'll come to your house when you're asleep.